Hello, hello. This thing on? Looks like it is. Should be, at least. And now we wait for anyone who wants to show up, which, knowing my audience, there's not necessarily a ton, but that's fine. It's fine. I am... Oh, hello. Hello, there is someone who shows up. Hello, Waffles. How are you doing tonight? Hello, Odd Panda. How are you as well? Didn't expect people to just show up, but here we are, right as I just start a random impromptu stream. Sure. Sure. You know what? That's totally fine. I have no complaints. Okay, what else do I need to do? The Alliance raids, the trials, the expert dungeons, and that's all I need left. Here I underestimate this game. You talking about 14 or are you talking about Foldland Winds? Not Foldland Winds, that's the song name. Fortune's Weave. Doing good. The perfect storm, trying to be productive, saw the stream notification said, sure. Well, allow this to be background noise while you shore your productive whatever you're doing, I guess. Fortune's Weave, yeah. Okay, so I have spent the last better part of a year, I guess, being not necessarily down on Fortune's Weave per se, but very much I'm not really interested, I don't have a Switch 2, I don't really feel like getting one just for one game. You know, it's more Three Houses. I liked Three Houses when I played it, but then I kind of fell off of it. The more I learned about the meta, the more I learned about just everything else, the more that I just grinded it out. It was then like, I did a run through every route, and then I did the DLC, and then I put it down and never went back. You know, that's my experience with Three Houses. And then my natural hipster part of me started being like, well, it's so popular, therefore, part of me just automatically starts not liking it as much and wanting to like less popular games like Fire Emblem 1 or Fire Emblem 6, you know, stuff like that. And then they have the more recent trailer and it's like, okay, that's fine, it's cool, it doesn't really excite me or get me more interested. And then you have the whole social media slowly drip feeding of just like, here's a unit, here's their backstory, here's a unit, here's their backstory, which is like, I couldn't care less about units and backstories out of context, just no. And so I was like really negative on it, really down on it. And then now I hit the point where it's like, hey, I guess I'll watch the direct. Like, I didn't watch it live, I didn't watch it directly, I took several hours afterwards, heard that people picked up on screenshots that there were visible growth rates, made the post shouting out my 3 and a whatever year old video about the subject, and then I'm like, you know what? I might as well watch the direct. And here I am. And gosh dang it if they didn't pull me back in, because it's just like, hey, here's the 4 characters, the 4 big characters, you know them, you love them. Here's a bunch of random side characters. Here's the basic plot. Here's the weapons. Swords. Swords do sword things, sure. That's not interesting? Lances, spears. Spears are effective against cavalry. All of them, I guess. Axes have high damage but are slow or inaccurate, something like that. It's like, okay, cool. So that echoes the what I've been saying about axes in Fire Emblem 6. They are high-risk, high-reward weapons. Gauntlets, they exist too. Second walk first. Okay, fine, let's do this. And it's like, okay, cool. Cool. Here's the ability to switch between all 4 characters at will, and I'm like, okay, so they're not doing explicit route split. Here's a giant world map Here's every character has their own abilities to interact with the world map. Here's turn-based JRPG combat systems in dungeon monster fights. I'm just like, what is this game? You know, what is this game?
Is this meant to be Sandoria?
Is this meant to be Sandoria? I don't know. What is this game? What is Fortune's Weave? Stop going till we figure it out. Anyway, so what have people been saying now that I'm in content and just need to press my AoE buttons? A bunch of classes were enemy only. Oh yeah, like elephants and monsters and stuff. It's like, okay, got some fun stuff there. Love what they're doing with passes. 4-tile playable units. Yeah, we have Anna riding an elephant. That's hilarious. Not being enemy only, being a 4-tile unit. Charioteer and Elf having the ability to just like drive through enemies, kind of like Sigurd's engage attack, but that's just a thing they can do. Okay. Or just play raw. Looks like what I saw. I have a few things. It's hard to tell if it's bad without playing it. Oh yeah, no. There's a lot of things where implementation is definitely going to be critical. Fortune's Weave seems to be a far more ambitious game than I gave it credit for. Ambition does not mean good. Ambition does not mean bad. Ambition means they have a lot to worry about and a lot to potentially mess up, but if they get it right, then they're going to have a lot more payoff because of the ambition. For like side characters, kind of dislike all spearsmen. Have to see. We'll definitely see. We'll definitely see how common are spears, how common are calves. Are spears going to be significantly worse to compensate for the fact that they're cavalry effective? You know, how broad is the ability to use a bunch of different weapons? Are we going engage style, where every class has a different weapon variant? It doesn't look like it. It looks like we're actually going back to classes with more limited and specific weapons that they can use. It seems pretty explicitly not engage or Three Houses style, where every class can use every weapon, which thank goodness for that. That was a nightmare. Switch between characters would be nice. Trade the characters not all the same because you feel burnt out. All the same in terms of personality-wise, because they seem very different. Or are you saying all the same in terms of like gameplay-wise? Because they also seem different in character. It seems like they'll have differently balanced armies, but we'll see if they end up all having a mix of units, or if they end up like each particular army has kind of a main focus. Like this one has more mages, this one has more archers, this one has more cavalry, you know, stuff like that. I think, for instance, SOV did it pretty well, where you have Alm's army, which is very like physical unit focused, cavaliers and whatnot, and then you have Celica's army, which is very mages and mercenaries. That's kind of your primary.
The divine beasts. Have care.
It's been so long since I've done this. I've forgotten half these boss mechanics. Okay, so that's that comment. Sorry, I'm just catching up to all of you. I think we've learned 3 hours. Not every class can use every weapon anymore. Yes, thank goodness for that. I already said. It does most of the actual effects of the combat weapons seem to require combat arts to actually use, like, killing it. That is... I've not paid too much close attention. Like, I've not, like, done, like, a deep dive analysis of the direct or the trailer or anything, and I've not seen anyone's deep dive analysis. In fact, I've just unsubscribed from pretty much everyone because I'm just like, cool, I'm I don't have a Switch 2 yet. I probably won't be playing this for a while. And so it's going to be... It's going to be a while before I play it, but I want to still try to have a more unspoiled experience of it when I do get around to it. And as such, I just, like, not going to watch stuff on YouTube about it anymore. So we have big, then we have side and ring, then we have left arm. Fix the weapon require combat to use the effect of killing it. Yeah, that is an interesting idea. Knives, there's coin flip now. I'll hit the concept of gun emblem. Not necessarily super strong about it. For or against, it just kind of is. Finally, I couldn't even click on that. Sorry, flashbang. Guns in Fire Emblem are allowed to exist. Yeah. Finally showing growth rates of the game. No need to wait for data miners to get the info put on Wiki Serenese Forest. Yeah, it's... Like, I'm okay not knowing growth rates most of the time because I'm not a heavy optimizer, but I do know that any heavy optimizer is going to... Like, there are definitely people who wait until the wiki is fully updated before they even touch the game, and I fully understand that they exist. Even if I'm okay going in blind for a lot of things, it's just kind of better to have the knowledge available, even if you don't necessarily need it. And especially if they try to do anything like they did with Jean and Engage, where he pretty explicitly... The things he does with his growth rates were strange, and not something that anyone's ever they've ever done before in that sort of way. But no one would have ever... Not no one, but like, how were you supposed to figure that out without knowing what the growth rates were and what the class growth rates were, and the fact that what his thing does is specifically double the class growth rates? Without that knowledge, Jean becomes not really usable at all, which is incredibly frustrating.
Let's keep moving.
And since the 3 houses where the chapters are pretty similar for all the chapters being similar for all the routes. Yeah, I have no idea when they're like, oh, play their story. It's like, does that just mean you're just going to have the opportunity to play all 4 of the arena battles? Like, oh, play the arena battle. Now play the arena battle but this other group and just do that 4 times. It's like, I wouldn't want to necessarily do that a ton, but I do want... I'd be okay with a little bit of it here and there, but if it's constantly that's all it's doing, that would get so old so quickly. Oh, looks like I'm going to be the one taking Ultima. Hot take is believe they showed too much. Feels important to point out strips, one of the things. Yeah, that's definitely something that I think is a risk they kind of have to take, because on one hand, I'm like, okay, the idea of having 4 routes that go... How did my brain work around this? The idea of having 4 routes that then combine into one, and then the way that they did it being like, oh, and now you have to regather the team and whatever. It very much confirmed. It very much confirmed the idea that we are not getting, like, oh, you're gonna defend these people, and it's like it's not gonna be a massive conflict. Like the conflicting, the parties are not going to be conflicting in the end and like killing each other and whatnot. And they I guess, you know, spoiled that, if that were the case, or that is not the case, while also then being like, okay, here's how the darkness enters in, and here's all of this, here's how Sothis enters the picture, here's who, I'm spacing on the name of the character in white, comes into play, and they're like, oh, they're the main protagonist of this story, the real protagonist. It's like, cool, cool. I do agree that if that had not been spoiled and had just gone through, like, cleanly, I guess, I probably would have enjoyed the twist and the jump between Act 1, Act 2, whatever, a lot more. I think they definitely lost something in how much they showed. But at the same time, I was not interested in the game very much at all until seeing the stuff they showed and then being like, okay, cool. I'm far more interested in this game now that I know for sure that I don't have to play the whole dang thing 4 times just to understand what the story's going to be, you know. Just to have all the context that I feel I need. And so it's a hard balance that they struck with how complex the game is and how ambitious they're trying to be with it. I think they kind of needed to overshare in order to sell enough, like to sell more people on it, like myself even. But I do understand very much so the idea of I don't want to have... It kind of sucks that they did end up oversharing as much as they did. Doubt we'll see much of the game from now until it releases, so the info's kind of fine. Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with... Like, it's only like a month away, isn't it? It's like September or something when it launches. I've forgotten what order they are landing in, so I'm just gonna do that. It's like September, so like mid-September, I want to say, is when they are finally launching. So that's gonna be fun. Oh, whoops! Walked right into that missile. Oh, it's just Ultima left. Awesome. It's done. I can finally read a little bit more of chat.
An impressive show. Hurry now. Do not keep me waiting.
Yeah. What even is the official name for growth rates? I don't know if they gave us an official name. People are just snatching screenshots and posting those. Gage also brought back fixed mode depending on the mode you play, trying to make character growth more streamlined and explicit nowadays. Yeah, I don't necessarily like that fixed mode is... How was it that they did it? Engage, I think they did fixed mode is enforced the first time you play maddening and isn't an option outside, but then once you beat maddening you can have fixed mode or random mode on any difficulty. I think that's how they did it. Like, I'm totally fine having fixed mode as an option. Path of Radiance had a weird version of fixed mode that was not super great, but like I'm totally fine with the way they did fixed mode for like Engage. It actually, if anything, there's parts of me that's like, you know, certain units just kind of end up better in fixed mode on average because they are predictable and you know exactly what you're getting with them instead of being very... Like, knowing that putting this unit in this class means you'll always get strength every second level up, you know, some stuff like that makes it more predictable, and a lot of the units felt like they turned out better on fixed mode than in random growth mode, but that's also because you know, negativity bias and all that, of like you only notice the units that are getting screwed in their stats. So yeah, growth's more streamlined and explicit, I'm totally fine with that. Love fixed mode. Sonic Adventure 1, not familiar with Sonic Adventure 1. I think Fire Emblem carries in gameplay for the most part, so I'm sure I'll have fun regardless. Fire Emblem can have very good stories. It just has typically gone for let's be bigger, let's be over the top. Or in Engage's case, it was pretty explicit that they were doing like, let's hit all the tropes of the series and not necessarily be super ambitious, which... For what it was fine, but if you weren't, like, okay with that being what it was, fire, then lightning, then that's totally understandable that you would be like, oh, I didn't like Engage's story. It's like, yeah, Engage's story was very Saturday morning cartoon in that sort of sense. Fortune's Weave would be the only reason I get a Switch 2 if I do get one. I feel you there. Hold on, what was it first before Fire? Hopefully other people understand it. Fire Earth, I want to say? And I still mess it up because I just stepped into the wind.
Behold the glory of the Zalat.
Okay, a month and 10 days away. Yeah. It's like September 15th. For this show, looks replayable as heck, even more so with usual. It depends on what you mean with Fire Emblem and replayability and all that, because it's like some people take having a ton of units in its own as being replayable. Some people are like, unless there's new story content or stuff that's like hard splits you can't do both of, then it's not replayable. It's like what replayability is very fluid in that. So, I mean, yeah, some people just replay games a lot. Some people don't replay games hardly at all. And it is what it is. I feel like random growth is too strongly tied to a conception of Fire Emblem enjoyment to play fixed. And that's totally understandable as well. I generally am... I still have not finished my maddening run of Engage. I got to the Alir Snow map. I had a pretty jank setup to get there in the first place. And so, like, I was relying a lot on a couple of mages, and was doing a lot with, like, freezing enemies and terrain control in order to get through. I didn't have a well-made Lucina Death Ball stack. I don't have the DLC. And I didn't really have any good, strong tanking units. So... yeah, I'm gonna have to finish that Engage run at some point in time. I also started it way back before the well existed, and so the well just kind of snapped into being halfway through my run. And then that threw everything off, because I'd already invested most of my money into, like, getting... I'd invested most of my money into getting Venomous, because I'm like, cool, I want to have just the massive damage Smash Lance really early on, get that early on, build some, like, do some weird, like, Sigurd stuff with that. I'm like, okay, cool, I can do that. And then, you know, halfway through that run, oh, suddenly the well is here, and the well is what you should use as your money sink. And then I was just like, well, I feel sheepish, because now I'm most of the way through a maddening run where I've now started using the well and getting SP books, but I've not done it the whole time, so I'm still not really getting the benefit of it. It's a whole thing, and there's a part of me that's like, if I wanted to finish Engage Maddening, I should probably just restart, but I'm also so close to finishing that game, and each one of those missions is just so long. Each one of those maps is so long that it, like, is incredibly draining to play. So, yeah, that's where I landed on Engage. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed Engage quite a bit. It just, like, it mentally wore me out to play it for a super long period of time. Showing growth in game, keeping the random looks like a compromise between characters growing in unique ways, having a degree of control in your decision making. Yes, the worry that I have with them making growth visible is how much are players going to immediately write off characters based on their growth rates and not even give them a shot. I know that happens because with the data mining and wiki and everything anyway, but how much worse is that going to be of people prejudging units purely based on growths and not on any other characteristics that they might have that we just won't necessarily know about at first blush, you know? Fire Emblem Relics have fixed 90% of Fire Emblem problems like years ago. Yeah, the visible growth rates, there's the... some people have issues with the UI in general, being able to like hover over instead of having to go into the menu. I haven't played a ton of FE-ROM hacks, and the ones that I have played are like the really old ones, like Last Promise, Road to Ruin, Void's Blitzar Adventure, and like maybe one or two others. FE7X was another one. That was I'm not going to say a mistake. I learned a lot from FE7X. They did a lot of cool things, and then they made so many, like, just critical, like, fan game mistakes, I'm going to say. It was certainly an experience. Split the difference of 50% fixed, 50% random. I don't necessarily know how that would work without overly confusing so many people, because even just saying that is like confusing. Do you mean some units are fixed? Do you mean some of their growths are fixed? Like, how does that work? I don't even know. What lord interests me the most? That's hard to say, because, okay, we have Kai, who is very shonen protagonist coded, like, straight up. Traditional Fire Emblem protagonist, shonen protagonist, young boy, wants to save his father, has magical powers beyond his reasoning, whatever. I'm totally forgetting the names of most of the others. Dietrich... I'm interested to see where they go with it, being like, okay, you have the traditional, like, oh, I want power type person, but then it's also, they're like, okay, he's just straight up a monster hunter, and I'm like, I'm cool with that. Don't necessarily need to go into the whole crazy backstory that I'm sure he probably has, but there's, you know, we'll see how that works out. You have the Empress lady who seems to be very much like big army command energy, and then you have the one who the bard songstress, who, if any of you have played Octopath Traveler, such primrose energy in that character. The plot line, there's a, like, I don't know who the voice actors are. Maybe it's even the same voice actress. Who knows? So much primrose energy in that character. Yeah, so that's... I don't necessarily have anyone that stands out to me super strongly over that. I kind of like them all because they are all so different. We'll see how that ends up shaking out. Anyway, what have people been saying as I've been distracted and playing? Okay, those are gonna warp, and then this is gonna kill me. Cool. And then they're gonna put the chain. Oh wait, they're pulled by the chain. Okay. I'll just become the stack here. Cool. I don't know if they were pulled by the chain or someone rescued them. Either way, thank you. Thank you for centering the thing on the group. Okay, so someone... Last message that I saw was someone saying... Opinions on Fodlan Winds. I keep saying Fodlan Winds. Fortune's Weave. My opinions on the Fortune's Weave characters. I'm trying to find... Random growth tied to enjoyment. Sharing wrestling games is reward and choose the most here. Mario's Golden Country. Someone said something about Mario's Golden Country, and I'm trying not to kill the whole raid with a tank buster. Against ruling crescent best attacks to ever exist. Okay. I've heard very good things about Morrow's Golden Country. I've heard some good things about Cerulean Crescent, but I'm less familiar with it. Oh, someone fell. Awesome.
My javelin pierces all.
Yeah, you and your javelin. Cool. Now I remember that this hits twice. Oh wait, that's an in. It doesn't matter. We're fine. Easy fight, easy game. Give me trading cards. I need Eldnarsh. 28, 42, 52. Of course I got a 92 on the minion. I'm never gonna get these triple triad cards, am I? Just pass on the rest of that. Okay, let me catch up to the rest of chat while I'm waiting on people to roll on their stupid cards. Mars One Country, Cerulean Crescent, Last Promise Mentioned Baby. Yeah, no, I was... not OG. Oops, I pressed the mute button on my mic. I don't know when that happened. Hopefully that was just in the last 2 seconds. I was not necessarily OG on The Last Promise, but it was definitely... I played it in like 2014, I want to say. 2014 or 2016, one of those two. Roy 2 and his kid crew in second place. Barrack Saga Growth System. I also need to play the rest of the Kaga sagas. I've played Vestaria. I've played Vestaria Saga. I have not played Vestaria 2. I have it, but I haven't played it yet. I have not played Tear Ring or Barrack. Still need to play those two. I have people in my Discord who are going to explode when I finally play those. Okay. So, class give fake stats on level, but the character itself has random growth percentages. Interesting. So basically increasing the rate at which the characters grow universally based on that class growth system, but having then the character's growth probably be lesser to compensate, so it's more random. It could be interesting. Hot take is I find Dietrich so bland, at least from what I've seen. His design is boring, in your opinion, not super unique. He has been called, like, budget Alucard, and I understand that for a lot of people that's very kind of like, oh, the edgy darkness is all he has going for him, and it's kind of like a one note, and that's totally fine of an opinion to have. I don't think that there's necessarily anything that's like super strong about his design, especially when compared with the other three lords, where even Kai has, like I said, plucky shonen protagonist energy. The other two are far more interesting in ways that are very Fire Emblem, where he is just kind of like dark, brooding, white blonde hair. His sword is the only thing that's super Fire Emblem about him, and that's kind of whatever it is. Okay, what else people are talking about? We're almost done. Suggesting Barrack Saga growth system. Someone who directly talks about Barrack. Never played Barrack Saga. Another voice actress is Primo's voice is Yunaka, actually. Oh, interesting. Catherine, too, working on hacks. Here's me because, like, what if it sucks? Oh, yeah, no. Every time you put something out, every time you put creative energy into something, you just have to accept the fact that there's a good chance it's not going to be good. But you just have to create it first before you know that for sure. You have every intention of making something good, but you never really know if it turns out good or not until, you know, it turns out, until it exists. Brazilian Miku and Masochist recently wishing discount Alucard. Wish teacher could more colors. I feel like I went for a Xander-like design, but Xander's just a cooler design. Xander has very much a cool design, I will say. I can knock Fates for a lot of things. I cannot knock its visual design overall. I think the character design and the world design and the music as well is very, very good in Fates, but it's also just Fates is not my personal flavor of Fire Emblem. I'm going to take a drink, and then I'm going to queue myself up for 1 and 3. While I read more chats. Wish Dietrich had more colors. Yeah, definitely. Garcia, Seth Fusion. I've not paid attention to any of the characters that they've like revealed on. I've not paid attention to any of the characters that they've revealed on social media. I've basically not paid attention to the characters that they've just had as like bit players in the trailers. I'm just they exist, but I don't have opinions on them. Some 6 Homer design that is pretty fun. I'm just bringing back odes to some of those older, like the Thracian characters is always fun. I get fearing the reaction to creation. Several creative projects never release the world out of fear. Oh yeah, no. How many videos have I had that died in ideation, or in scripting, or goodness knows in editing? Ugh, I have so many videos that I've scripted and recorded and then just never put out because I never finished editing them, because I do not like video editing. And I am bad at it. And as I learn more and get better, I still don't like it because it takes so much time. But then the things that I start getting okay at, I then look back and being like, you know what, I still don't like the way that looks. I look at a video that is well edited and I'm like, congratulations, I have so much infinitely more respect for well edited videos now that I've done video editing myself and know how much effort it takes to get even the smallest little bits to function and to look right, and how easy it is to mess something up and make it look horrible. Love the Thraits aesthetic and gameplay are on point. Shane, the text is that. Yeah, Fates is its whole bucket of worms, where it's like, they had potential. They have some story beats that work. I just think that the entire interstitial everything of it doesn't. And the fact that everyone is so narratively inconsistent between their interactions in the story, their interactions with each other through supports, and then their interactions with other characters, even in smaller story moments. The inconsistency of characters is a huge wall in preventing me from really engrossing myself in the story. Even if the story was better, I think that the lack of consistency, especially around Corrin and how everyone will fall head over their heels to either love or despise Corrin, totally outside of whatever their characterization is for everyone else, is very frustrating with Fates. Still shocked we got a confirmed returning playable character from 3H. Yeah, Sedith chilled out, man. He has a nice hat. He bleach blonded. He has, he bleached his hair, got a cool hat, and chilled the heck out, Turns out getting away from an overbearing boss like Rhea for after 1,000 years will do wonders for your skin. Kind of put money into my hat. Commissioned Lord's Portraits, really happy with. As I put money in the game, I have to release it at some point. That's understandable. Like, I think that there's definitely an idea of, like, hey, you want to put forth the best effort, put forth the best work. If I was definitely making a hack and doing something with a professional level, I would definitely want to get professionally done art, meaning I would pay an artist to do stuff because I don't have that type of skill. I don't have the type of time to develop that sort of skill to the degree that I want, that I think would look good. So, and I don't want to use AI to generate assets, and stock assets are fine if you're learning, but you really should use custom assets for a whole serious venture. But I definitely understand that of like, hey, you've put money into it, you put so much time into it, you probably, like, you want to release it, but then you're worried and you're nervous about what's gonna happen when I do. Are people gonna even like it? Is it... It's like you have the multiple layers of issues of, like, 1, is anyone even gonna play the dang thing? 2, if they do, are they gonna like it? 3, if they like it or if they hate it, are they even gonna tell anyone or tell me how they feel about it, you know? And 4, if they tell me how they feel about it, is that gonna be good or bad? You know, there are so many layers to creative works and making creative works public once it's no longer just for you that don't get talked about enough outside of creator spheres. Creators talk about it all the dang time to other creators, but budding creators don't necessarily have that until they've made creations and put them out there and put themselves into spaces where they can talk to other creators about the problems that they have, because then creators understand another creator when they are talking about a problem that they have. So it's interesting in sort of that level. But yeah, I totally understand you, Waffle, on that. Hate reading your old stuff, you know, do so much better. Oh yeah, I listen back to my old videos every once in a while, out of curiosity. Some of them hold up. I will say, some of them hold up. Some of them I'm like, man, I wish I was writing this well nowadays, you know? There's a couple that are still like that. But then there's a lot that I'm like, ugh, I had that opinion. I said that. My microphone quality was terrible. Like, it sounds like I'm using my I'm using my headset now, so my mic quality is garbage. But yeah, all the little things, all of the mouth noises and movements that I would have, every little thing in some of these old videos bother me. The fact that in the video I linked today that I was like, hey, I'm gonna make this a series, and episode 2 of said series has not existed, and I'd totally forgotten that I was even gonna do that thing, you know? I've even forgotten what those videos were even potentially going to be, because I had like 5 ideas of episodes, and I just never did them. Word for her, taste in media will inevitably outpace her skill in creation and lead to the disappointment in our abilities that every artist feels. Don't remember that word. I would believe it that there's words for that. I don't know what they are either. A mythal stream, do your minds deceive me? No, they don't, Ela. If you would like to hop on and chat, let me know and I can hop into the stream chat section of the Discord. If not, and you just want to chill and chat, that's fine. Maladaptive Dragon could use or have a Fire Emblem character world in my head with 35 plus side characters. Write it down. Start an outline. And the first thing to do is to get it out of your head and into somewhere where you won't forget about it. Granted, as soon as it's out of your head, you're going to have the debate of, well, now I'm beholden to how I wrote it. And the answer is, well, you're not really beholden to it specifically. You can always change it up until the point when you release it. But once you write something down, it becomes more effortful to change. I've had stories and books and ideas in my head for a long time, but as soon as I start writing it down, it becomes weirdly stuck in the halfway space of, I feel locked into the stuff I've already written, but the stuff I haven't written keeps wanting to change and grow. So I totally understand any hesitancy you have for putting pen to paper on that. Especially if you're being like, okay, well, I need to learn FE Builder or SRPG Maker or something like that. And that is a mountain. That's a mountain that I stare at every once in a while when I'm like, what if I did want to make Fire Emblem Disposable Heroes? What if I did just want to experiment with it and make the Fire Emblem Jukebox, you know? All these random ideas that I have in my head. What if I did want to make just a meme hack, you know? But I've yet to do any of that because it's a lot of work learning a brand new system, and I already have so many other creative works in the backlog as we speak. I'm sitting on like 6 different videos in various stages of gathering footage and editing and everything, and it's just kind of... you know, am I going to add something else onto my plate that I'm never going to finish? I don't want to, but, you know, there's always the chance that something happens, and then it's like, cool, maybe I do want it. So yeah, I get that. A lot of daydreaming. Hacking tools are super easy. Anyone can make anything, so give it a shot. Fire on the Jukebox is such a banger idea. Yeah. I just need more songs to come up with fun reasons, with fun ideas for maps for. I just need more songs that can inspire me. Because for some reason, what inspires me about, like, to make, like, oh, Fire Emblem map ideas is music. And so it's like, okay, cool, we have various Metallica songs, various Smash Mouth songs of all things, and then random one-offs here and there as I listen to parodies, like Land Down Under by Men at Work, because I listened to the Remy MTG parody about creatures from the graveyard coming from a land down under, and I'm just like, okay, so necromancer, skeletons, and zombies and whatnot, so like FE2 or FE8 style, and then just like bolting sages. And that's the idea, you know. I haven't come up with anything else. Like bolting sages, can you hear the thunder? You better run, better take cover. You know, it's just such a stupid random meme of an idea, but that's what exists in my head when I give half a thought about it. Artistic growth is a fluid thing. Is iterate. I cannot speak. Fluid things iterated on rather than coming out all at once. Oh yeah, totally. If you are a writer and have tried to write characters or have stories in your head, tell me if this is true. The characters go on their own way and live their own lives and will go in direct, like, you think you have the story figured out, and then as soon as you start going through a scene, the character will say and do things that are like, hold on, I didn't expect you to do that, but what you said made more sense than what I thought you were going to say. And then suddenly you have a different version of the story. Okay, Prish, let me just beat you up real quick here. There's 24 of us and one of you. What are you going to do? Banishka? Okay. Here, make your own Fire Emblem characters have support in literal dreams. Ah, that's how you know you're cooked. But that's totally fine. Okay, this is fine. How the hell, just the most map of all time. Oh yeah, no, I want to make Roadman and just have a unit with like 15 move but 0 attack, who you have to race before they just crash into an enemy that instant kills them. That's what I want to do. That's like the meme idea of this, like, you know, whole Fire Emblem jukebox idea. That's the one that was like, you know, maybe what if I did that? The most what if I did that of all the ideas. Interesting watching your stuff. Big map design guy. I adore making maps. Sometimes it's hard. It is hard. Like, I've gone through and I've tried to keep doing like the Arcanea map recap, but I'm stuck on this one. 17X, which is only in Shadow Dragon. It's the not jail map. It's the castle map where you get Frost. I think it's Frost. It's Frost or Edsel. And it does an interesting thing where it's like, okay, you have covered portions that you then unlock the door and those portions become uncovered. But it's also a... Death Gaiden map, so there's not a ton that they do with it. Death Gaidens are always kind of easier maps designed for you to get back on your feet. And so it's an interesting idea that I don't think is given all of its chops, but at the same time is fine. I don't know. I have a hard time expressing opinions about it, I've found, and that's why I'm kind of stuck on that as a video of just like, okay, cool, here's a death guide, and how do I feel about it? And it's the most like, I kind of like it, it's fine, but I get lost in what I'm even trying to say about it, because it just kind of feels like such a nothing video every time I try to come up with... Wow, she died quickly. I guess that's the power of like 4 extra patches worth of gear. Waffles had a message redacted here.
Way out is forward.
So discovering stuff more than generating it. Oh yeah, no, definitely the path of discovery of a writer as you are learning more about your own creations, and not necessarily. This is stealing and bastardizing a Socrates quote. Socrates being, in terms of like the discussions he had, is that he's not a teacher. He feels he is not a teacher. He is a midwife of ideas. Of you are helping the idea come to fruition, not necessarily being the one to create it whole cloth. And I think that writing stories is very similar. Coming up with story ideas is very similar. Is that you are not necessarily creating it yourself out of whole cloth like some grand director. You are helping to birth the idea or the character or the story through its travail, but that travail is kind of just going to be a thing regardless of you. You just have to be there in order to push it forward. The wave thing from Path of Radiance, interesting. Which wave thing are you talking about? Like the Galdrar and the Herons, or just the... I'm pulling a blank on what you're talking about there with the wave thing from Path of Radiance. Like Lex Telephonus. Units have stupidly... A telephone project, interesting. Yeah. Oh, biorhythm. I'm gonna be fully honest, I haven't actually thought about it as being like a thing of like, hey, music is important. I've literally not even come up with the majority of like, if any mechanics even matter or not. It's just, these are just ideas of like, hey, what if I have a map, like maps inspired by random songs, and there's very loose, if any, interstitial plot tying them together. That's as far as the idea's gone so far. But yeah, it's still in a very, very early phase of ideation, assuming it ever even comes into fruition. What about death items instead of chapters? Like, oh, you lost this character, here, have this item instead. Or you lost X number of characters, have like stat boosters to make up for it, or a rainbow potion or something. I think it could work. It's... I mean, this goes back to my idea for, if you've been on the Discord, Fire Emblem Disposable Heroes, where, inspired by a Metallica song with the same name, vaguely, but just the idea of, what if you had to sacrifice a unit in order to get a promotion item for that class? Like, for instance, what if you had, you know, both your Christmas Cavaliers, you never get a Night Crest, and instead you have to sacrifice, like, you basically go to a shrine where both your Christmas Cavaliers go to it, one of them dies or gets absorbed into the other, or sacrifices into becoming an item or something. So then the other one can get a promotion. And it's like a super powered promotion, like a super promotion. But You have to give up the unit in order to do that.
Brace yourselves.
And that was an idea that I had that I'm like, I don't even know how... If I were to make a hack, that is the hack I would make, first of all. But I don't have the knowledge or skill to know if, one, that's even possible to make in, like, an FE engine, or if I'd have to do a custom stuff. Or B, if it would even be playable or fun. But I would love to make it as an experiment just to see if it turns out to be playable or fun or interesting at all to anyone. Or if it's just something that people would just be like, ugh, that sounds absolutely garbage. Who would ever do that? You know? These are the types of thoughts that come into my head when I'm like, hey, what if that... What was that rotation that I just did? That was terrible. These are the thoughts that I have in my head when it's like... could definitely... Like, I want to create them just to see what would happen, not necessarily because I'm beholden to, like, these stories or these ideas. I've run the casted a personal death item tied to the unit, and they give it when they die. Well, then that just becomes, okay, instead of benching units, you just kill them off to get their item, but then maybe you have a certain... Maybe it alters your ideas of like, hey, what if it's a really bad unit? Like, it's a really good unit, but they give a really good item. Maybe you want to kill them off, versus what if it's a bad unit, but they give only a bad item, and so, well, it's more worth it to still use that mediocre unit over a slightly better unit, because the slightly better unit would give a better item when they die. You know, it would create an interesting concept, and kind of similar along those similar lines of what I was saying. So yeah, could be interesting. Could be interesting. I think, again, I think it's a very feel-bad experience, but it's an idea. Actually, just knowing that at least for one unit, when he dies, it gives you an XP charm. Character will personal skill literally kills them. Sounds nice. SMT Persona system, Demon Fusion, Item Fusion for the sacrifice mechanic. Yeah, kind of. I've never actually played an SMT or Persona game, so maybe I should if I end up doing something like that. I find them very interesting, but I've just never played one myself. I never made a mock of the idea when we were talking about. Yeah. This is back quite a while ago, when you made like a level up staff or something. Because the idea was, hey, can you force... The idea was, can you force promotion, or can you force death, or force promotion, or maybe do both? And I forget exactly how you managed to code it, but turns out you were able to code something as proof of concept. Yeah. Okay, Archangels, here we go. Experimental warp staff. Limited range. Cost uses life transfer staff from your staff user. That I feel like that's a bit too much.
You shall be consumed by the cowardice that binds you.
Yeah, let's interrupt that meteor cast. Thank you. I feel like it's a bit too much of like cost a unit's life just for a warp. I think that's only interesting for, like, LTCers or speedrunners, and not necessarily casual players, for the most part. But that's also just my take, as someone who very much does not use warp on a regular basis. Never played a Megaten game? No, I have not. I've recently watched videos on them. I've recently watched like full retrospectives of some of the Persona games and whatnot, or SMT games. And I think they're very interesting. I want to play them, but I've just never gotten around to actually playing one myself. TMS, if you want to bridge it. I don't know how to feel about TMS, to be perfectly honest. It's kind of one of those things that I know it exists, and I could just pick it up and play it at any time if I want to. I just don't. Again, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how much I necessarily want to. I've heard that it's not really Fire Emblem and it's not really SMT. It's kind of just something different in itself, which is fine, but I'm going to be fully honest, I've not heard a ton about it because most I've heard about it was other people's preconceived notions about it. So I should probably be a little more, you know, hence why I'm so hesitant on what my thoughts are on it, because, you know, I've never played it, so why would I have thoughts on it?
You shall be defeated by the apathy that plagues.
Break the shield, break the shield. Disposable emblem, actually, even if you have the story focused attack, just go generic only unit game. Could potentially. It's hard to know for sure. Like capturing being a core mechanic. I know that people have done a variety of things with that concept of like generic units. Like there are like Fire Emblem type games where they make like, oh, here's like your gladiators, basically assemble gladiators from a team of effectively generic units, but they all have like their own unique set of abilities or ideas or whatnot. I know that you have there are some games, like there was like a roguelike hack, I want to say, of Fire Emblem where someone did it where it's like you have to, basically every run you get from a subset of different units that have these different abilities and whatnot, some of which are more powerful than others, but you know, it's a roguelike style, and so it's like you're just kind of doing it like a run-based gameplay instead of long-term, instead of anything long-term.
You shall be consumed by the cowardice that binds you.
I can see the chat is going. Give me 2 seconds to finish this boss fight. TMS to the trip. SRPG called Devil Survivor. More gameplay like Fire Emblem with Mega 10 battle system and demon mechanics. Very beloved. I would be interested in that, definitely, because I think that there's... Like, I'm not necessarily beholden to, like, Fire Emblem game mechanics or SRPG style, like, grid mechanics. I'm totally fine with classic JRPG turn-based as well. If anything, I grew up on and love turn-based battles. It's just a blind spot in my gaming history. That's totally just what it is. There's no particular reason for it. I just haven't. Just been playing other games instead. Played Illusionary Dungeon roguelike with generics. It's pretty fun. Okay, so here and there. Please. Embrace of the Fog. Yes, I think that was the one. Embrace of the Fog, because there was also like Tower 71 or something, which was like an MMO style one where you had like raid bosses, like type designed fights, which also sounded pretty interesting, but I never got into playing that one. There are so many Fire Emblem hacks that are very creative that I don't have the mental energy or time to keep up with all of them. Nothing against any of them, really. Just there's so many other games that I'm playing or wanting to play that I don't have the time for a lot of Fire Emblem hacks. But I probably should. Probably should make the time for that. If I did capture him, I would probably randomize the skills. I hate that it randomly selects a party member sometimes. Randomize skills from the big list and maybe some viable growths to variable growth spiced up. Oh yeah. For generics, you would look at how, if you wanted like generic units to be a thing, and the thing your Fire Emblem is built around, look at how, and I know it's Fire Emblem, so it's going to be different. Look at how XCOM does its stuff. Either old style or new style XCOM, but in terms of having everyone's generic, but then everyone's generic, everyone's kind of shuffled in together, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses that are, many of which are hidden from the player, but then you can do things to find out or vaguely find out. Especially with War of the Chosen, when a lot of units get, you know, they get their class skills, but then they get randomized. And they get their class skills, but they get randomized, oh, what are they called? Just XCOM list skills, but like skills from either past game classes, like XCOM 1 skills, or skills from other classes sometimes. And that tier of randomized skills are, well, yeah, randomized and unique for every unit and different every playthrough. It creates a lot of interesting gameplay where you're using units because of the classes they have and the levels they have, the ranks that they have, but if ever you need to train up a replacement, you are seeking after units that have better Sorry, my brain is going blank right now. You're seeking after units that have better access to skills or better rates of skill point acquisition whenever you need fillers, but you're not necessarily beholden to them more than you are to your high-rank soldiers, even if your high-rank soldiers don't have the best skills. And so it becomes something where you're encouraged both to manage your bench, as it were, and level up your bench, whilst also keeping your high-rank soldiers in the field and leveling them up still continuously. And so I think if you were to take inspiration from that for a game all about like Fire Emblem but with generics, it could be really cool, could be really interesting. I think it's just more of a matter of, okay, balancing out how you get your generics, where you get them from, and how many you get at a time, because the last thing you want to do is flood people with so many units that they can't... Okay, I already have that card. The last thing you want to do is flood people with so many units that they can't, like, process all of them, or that they don't care to process all of them. But you would want to keep some level of that give and take. How can you be expected to Fire Emblem when Sunbreak is so good? Exactly, man. These are the real statements here. Anyway, I know I just got sidetracked on talking about one theoretical hack that doesn't exist yet, but it's that type of stuff that actually does interest me, and I want to figure out a format in which I'm just able to talk about this type of stuff, because as I think about what my channel is, what it means to me, what it represents, what the biggest moments of joy I've had in doing the channel have been, it's been when I've been able to talk with people who've created very wonderful things, and they've told me how much my videos have helped direct their course or inspire them or whatnot, and when I'm able to give a little bit of elements of feedback and whatnot to stuff. I would love to become, for lack of, like, I guess the best term would be a design consultant for SRPG projects, game projects in general. I'd love to just be a design consultant. I think that's what, if I were to have like a goal or aspiration, especially based on where my channel is now and what the type of stuff that I enjoy most doing, that's what I would love to be. How the hell do I get there? You know, it's like, how does one get to being a design consultant? I don't know. I should just queue up for this. It's going to take a couple minutes. I don't know how to get to that point. How do I go from where I am now, which is armchair consultant, armchair design analyst, to actual professional design consultants on these sorts of things? Because I feel like that would really be making use of the way that my mind fixates on and captures things, but doesn't just hold them as good or bad, but holds them as, well, here's all the different options you have available to you and their downstream effects. I loved, like, design consultant idealized. I have no idea how to make it from where I'm at to that point. Anyway, let's finish up this chat. How can we expect a Fire Emblem when Sunbreak is so good? Exactly. Let me know when you're on the Afflicted Monster grind. I just love to play some Sunbreak with you, man. Just let me know when you're up. Hit me up. I would love to Sunbreak, because I love that game, and there's always more Afflicted Monsters to hunt. There are always more Afflicted Monsters to hunt. What Fire Emblem should do more is just build very clear flaws into units. Technical lock skills, personal skills, but only downsides, you know, 0 res cap. Interesting. So you're talking about like Darkest Dungeon style of, hey, this character is claustrophobic. If you take them into a tight space, they're likely to have a panic attack. This character is going to want to rush to the front regardless of whatever everyone else is doing. This character is going to freak everyone else the heck out, and you shouldn't bring them along in your party until you get that sorted out. Darkest Dungeon has so many interesting things that I think could be such interesting overlaps with Fire Emblem. If you're doing like a generic Fire Emblem, or like a roguelike Fire Emblem, or anything of that sort where you're building an army from like semi-randomized units or pools of characters, look into XCOM and look into Darkest Dungeon. I think Darkest Dungeon is fantastic for how it uses its systems, though albeit might be a bit too user-unfriendly for something that requires as much finesse in positioning and whatnot as Fire Emblem. Having units that would be like, hey, I'm just going to suicidally charge forward if I see this sort of enemy and take away control, might be a bad idea for Fire Emblem. Speaking of XCOM, I'm really excited for Zero Company. Maybe a lot of the same people as XCOM 1 and 2. Pray it's good. I have Zero Company on my radar. I've heard pretty good things about it. I've heard that they're making it single player, kind of mission story focused, and something that's not going to be a super, super long campaign, which are all things that, in my mind, are good, because it means that you can replay it if you want to, but you don't have to. That's all good stuff for me. Looking forward to Zero Company. I still have yet to play Chimera Squadron. I need to play Chimera Squadron. Even though I know a lot of people who like XCOM don't necessarily like it, I need to actually play it. I own it, I just haven't played it. It's on my list, same as Triangle Strategy, which I just barely started. Vestaria Saga 2, which I have waiting for me in Steam, and then, yeah, Chimera Squad as well. And then all the Barrack Sagas and Kaga Sagas and whatnot, and then so many other games. My backlog is so long, yet all I want to do is replay old RTS games. Help me, please. A lot of advice from the channel. Oh yeah, no, a lot of people have, and that's part of the reason why I want to become a consultant, because a lot of people have come to me and said, hey, thanks for your feedback, thanks for your support, or even come back later. There are a number of projects that I've directly talked with devs with and helped design, or at least given feedback on design. I haven't gone into the design works myself, obviously, but I've given a lot of feedback, I've bug fixed for them, I've ideated things for them, and it's been really cool to hear that feedback and to hear what they say about it. And that has given me more joy than anything else I've done with my channel, pretty much. And so I would love to chase that, if I could. I feel like you need to work up from a QA person or something. QA is... ugh. That's the thing. The question being, if I were to go a traditional industry route, like get into a company and work into a position from within the company, then yes, I would likely need to get hired on as QA, and they probably don't even have, like, the thing about consultant is that in theory as a consultant you are hired as an external hire. You are brought on as like a contractor or an external hire to be an outside set of eyes who is not strictly beholden to how the work was made, in order to see the work in a different light, in order to comment on the things it's doing well, the things it's doing poorly. That, in my mind, this is what a consultant is. This is what a consultant does. And so I think that that would be an ideal thing for me, in which case I don't think that going into industry and into a company is the right space for that, because a lot of companies do not have space for quote-unquote ideas guys. It has to be roped in with a bunch of other roles and a bunch of other things. Not that I want to just sit and be an ideas guy, but it's like, hey, I want to be a person who people can come to when they really need to actually hash out, okay, here's what I have. Here's the stuff that I already have. I don't need help creating ideas. I need to make it work. And just be able to, like, cool, sit down, hash it out with me. Let's make it work. Let's talk about all the possible flaws that could come up with it. Let's talk about the various options you could go in directions with issues you're having. You know, these are the types of conversations that I like having, and that I would like to have with more people going forward in the future. Hi, Shantoto.
What's this?
Time for everyone to
More
die.
vermin come to play? I'll put you down without delay.
And so, yeah, somehow being in, like, an external, like, private contractor for design consultancy, I would love to do. I just don't know how to go about doing that, and I'm not in a position to necessarily learn how to do that right away, because I'm a stay-at-home parent right now, and I'm starting homeschooling my child, and that is going to be an adventure and a half in its own, and take up a lot of my time during the day, so I'm not really going to have a chance to have the time to pursue career for a little bit, at least for as long as I'm doing this, which is fine. But just acknowledging that, of like, this is going to have to be something that I do as a hobbyist or as part-time, and the creating the space for myself doesn't exist outside of what I'm doing now with YouTube. Of, if my YouTube channel ends up being, this is like my portfolio, as it were, of design consultancy, that's kind of the best I can hope for right now. Anyway, while I'm walking through this fight, have any more comments come? Oh, yes, I just died to that because I wasn't paying attention. 4 Ultra GT units, solar run about to be crazy. It's going to be very interesting with that. They've definitely asked for feedback. I can't promise I can give feedback on everything. There are people who have asked me for feedback on, like, story vibes and whatnot, that I'm like, look, man, story is not my forte. I can't necessarily give you what you're looking for, especially considering I'm not sure what you're even looking for in the first place. Those conversations have definitely happened. But yeah, I'm more than happy to, if you catch me at a good time, if I'm not super busy, my Discord's always pretty much open if you want to ask me questions. I'm not at the point yet, obviously, where I can charge for my services. But it also is one of those things of, like, I would love to build up connections and build up this idea of, like, hey, being a person that people can come to So then that way, if I do end up wanting to do design consultancy in the future, I can then justify it by being, hey, here are all the people that I've worked with, the things that the projects basically that I've consulted for, and the feedback I've gotten on that, you know. If that ends up being, you know, another part of a potential portfolio, all the better. And maybe that's something that I can look into building over time. But the first thing is just actually consulting for people and getting used to it and seeing if I actually do still enjoy it after I do it more and more. So yeah, if you want to hash out ideas, my Discord is open for a lot of people. All I say is that I can't necessarily promise 100% access to my time, because this is, you know, my time has to come first and foremost for myself. I gotta take care of myself first. I can't give my time to everyone else at their whim. Am I ever gonna get out of that blizzard? I don't even know. I just always get hit by it. Always forget about it. You could always be a design consultant on the side, build a professional experience, I suppose. QA is different from design consultancy. Like, there's some overlap, but like QA is quality assurance. It's going in, bug testing, brute forcing, seeing what works and what doesn't on a very functional level. That sounds absolutely abysmal to me. Versus design consultancy is, here's more of the concept level, here's more of what we're intending. How does the intent line up with or fail to match with actual result or experience? It's matching intent and experience versus matching, like, finding bugs, I guess I would say. Also, it was critic, maybe? Games journalism focused on design.
This looks like
There's options for that. Games journalism and reporting and reviewing is a dying trade as a whole. But that's also because it's all gone independent, and that's something that I kind of do with my YouTube channel as well, is review stuff and analyze stuff. I mean, this is what I did with my big retrospective on the Impressions game City Builders, because I was trying to do something in that same vein of being like, hey, can I do what I do with Fire Emblem, but in a different genre, for different games, and kind of see how that ends up working out. And it revealed to me, basically, one, my channel is super locked into the Fire Emblem mines in terms of audience. In terms of, there are people who will watch my stuff for me or for whatever I have to say, and some of my stuff will find the audience that it hits, but if it's not Fire Emblem related, most people who my video has the opportunity to find will not click on it. I am not yet at the size that I would need to be to really break out of that. Plus the fact that my YouTube channel has been posting videos on and off for 13 years now means that I'm experiencing a lot of the channel death that older channels have without ever really having that growth life cycle of channels. In terms of algorithmically, I'm not finding new viewers as much as I'm just repeatedly hitting the same core audience. And that's not something I can necessarily control without creating a new channel or diverging from my current production with different videos super regularly for multiple videos in a row. And thus really, like, forcing the change in the algorithm that way. And since I still want to talk about Fire Emblem stuff, at least every now and then, that's not necessarily something that I'm super leaning towards. Story feedback is always difficult. Story feedback is difficult, especially when someone's just like, here, have a random chapter of a work that you're just kind of jumping into the middle of without context. And I'm not asking for any specific feedback, just kind of like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, you're not going to like it, but how I feel about it is, why am I reading this? I don't want to just be sitting here reading a random thing that I don't care about characters that I'm not super interested in. Like, if I feel like if I don't have a purpose for it, why are you coming to me? If you don't actually need me to provide something specific. If you're just asking for vibes, it's like, cool, it has these vibes, but you're not going to get anything useful out of me. So that was an interesting experience, I'll say. I don't think gaming playing would have much of any story, and that's totally fine. If you are a mechanics-focused player, or if you're just experimenting with stuff, or kind of whatever, don't worry about the story. Heck, a lot of my ideas, like that whole idea of like Fire Emblem Disposable Heroes, came from that idea of purely, what if Fire Emblem, but you had to sacrifice units to promote others? And a story began to come to my mind into existence of like, oh, you could have warring nations, you could have like the prince of this country, you could have these certain different moments that come to mind. But all of that came from a like, something that didn't begin as a story, it began as a mechanical concept. And so allow things to grow into what they want to be, but don't necessarily feel like you have to have them be everything. I'm trying to posting from not feel Reddit rhymes like that. Oh yeah, no, people have rhymes. Rhymes are fun, but some people are wired for rhymes and some people are not. I oftentimes can be, but I have to be in that rhyming mode. Like, I have to have just read a lot of Dr. Seuss or Shakespeare, you know? Something like that. Yeah. Do I ever regret being locked into the Fire Emblem sphere constantly? I never intended to lock myself to Fire Emblem. It just kind of happens. Like, granted, I'm not super upset. Like, there are times when I wish that I wasn't locked into Fire Emblem, purely because of what the Fire Emblem community tends to be, and how this is gonna sound wrong, especially considering Fire Emblem and anime connection. How incestuous the community is. Yeah, hear me out, hear me out. By that I mean, the Fire Emblem community very much tends to be a community of people that do not play other games. They only play Fire Emblem games. And when they're not playing main series Fire Emblem, they're playing Fire Emblem ROM hacks. And they hyper-specialize themselves into talking about Fire Emblem and thinking about Fire Emblem and all of the super nitty-gritty specifics of Fire Emblem that admittedly are very interesting. But the Fire Emblem community has also forgotten what average players' experiences and thoughts are. Because we have like a prescribed idea. We have a preconceived notion of a quote-unquote new player, what we think a new player is. We have a preconceived notion of what an average player is, what we think an average player is. Do we actually know what their experience is? I don't know. And this is, this is something that I really learned a lot from one of my friends from college who never played Fire Emblem, said he was never going to play Fire Emblem. And then eventually was like, you know what? Actually, it was like a stream incentive that he had that then it was finally like, okay, I made this stream incentive. I'm going to play Fire Emblem. I'm going to start with Awakening. That's the one that the person who filled the incentive wanted me to play, and that's also one that he was interested in. I genuinely believed that starting with Awakening was not a great idea for him, for what I knew about him. But I was also like, hey, if you're interested in this, here are some things that I would recommend doing in order to make your experience more enjoyable for you. Like, I knew that he played XCOM on Impossible Iron Man, and that he loved super high difficulty, no save scumming, that sort of stuff. And so I was like, hey, play on hard. Don't play on Lunatic, don't jump all the way, because that's no fun for anyone. But don't play on easy, because you're going to just mop the floor with the game, and it's not going to be a good experience. Play on hard. It'll be challenging but fair. However, I didn't realize that hard meant that he wouldn't get most of the tutorial pop-ups, because he still gets some tutorial pop-ups on hard, but he didn't get a lot of the interstitial story pop-ups. I didn't realize just how against inventory management he was. Like, he's one of the people that his critical complaint about Breath of the Wild was weapon durability, and I agree that Breath of the Wild has ruined weapon durability for any other game now. But I didn't realize that it was such an extreme thing with inventory management that he would just, like, fundamentally bounce from trying to manage inventory at all. And so all these different things, and I'm like, cool. He started on hard, and now he's having a terrible time because of the suggestions I made. He ended up restarting, I think, going normal mode, just so he could get all of the tutorial pop-ups and whatnot. Had an okay time, but was still also getting weird amounts of, like, guidance and half guidance from his stream, some of which were Fire Emblem players, some of which were more casual players. It ended up feeling like it was kind of a tainted experience, and I feel bad that it didn't seem like he ended up enjoying it as much as he potentially could have because of that tainted experience. But it was very interesting for me to then learn, oh, this is what a non-Fire Emblem player who is still a strategy gamer sees in Fire Emblem and how they experience that. Oh, I guess we're not waiting for people to get into to zone in, we're just going. So that was a very interesting time for me, going through that. But I guess in answer to your question, do I ever regret being locked into the Fire Emblem sphere? Very much so. And I guess that's what I was saying with the Fire Emblem community being very incestuous, is because they forget how games that are not Fire Emblem work. Another good example, when Fire Emblem Shadows came out, and a lot of people were against the game, a lot of people were like, it's fine, whatever. And then there are people who are like, oh, this is really cool, it's really creative, really inventive, I just wish more serious Fire Emblem did more with this. I was sitting there being like, okay, Shadows is fine, it's not fantastic, it's fine, but if you want a game that does all the mechanical things that Shadows does, but far, far better and more interesting, play Into the Breach. Like, so many of you have never played Into the Breach, and it shows. Into the Breach is one of the greatest turn-based tactics roguelikes ever made, in my opinion. And it does so much of the unit movement bouncing while being able to figure out what your opponents are, like, while being able to see what your opponents are doing. It's so interesting. More people need to play Into the Breach. More people who are familiar with Fire Emblem need to play Into the Breach. Is how I'll put that. So... But because it's not a Fire Emblem brand Fire Emblem game, a lot of people just kind of never did. And because it's a bit of an older game as well, a lot of people just don't remember it exists.
It's growing.
Anyway,
This place is
that rant out of the way, let me try to catch up on the chat that has gone quite a few places as I've been rambling. Knocked back into the corner, that's fine. I should play testers looking for the wrong things. You call me placeholder assets. Before I didn't know until nice. Oh yeah. No, a lot of this is just a thing in game design and with playtesters and alpha tests and whatnot, is that people don't understand there are a lot of people that functionally cannot work with gray box levels. And that's fine. But if you can't work with a gray box, don't be a QA tester. Don't play like true alpha, true early access. Gray box levels exist for a reason. You know, placeholder asset levels exist for a reason. You need to make sure that the people who are testing are not just calling out the placeholder assets, but are instead actually testing the things you're trying to test for. 100% gameplay first person, play a ton of games just for their systems more than their stories. Yeah, totally see that, totally understandable, no complaints with that. Nothing wrong with that. I'm so much of a mix of, like, I will play games... I play games first for their stories. I play games a mix for their stories and their mechanics. It's hard to say which one will capture me more first. I pick a game based on aesthetics and mechanics and story kind of all in one. But then I stick with a game to the end because of story, but then I replay a game because of mechanics. I don't usually replay games for their story because once I've played it once, I've experienced it. Largely, though I will also not necessarily always skip the story from a game because sometimes if I enjoy it, I will just do that. I'm trying to voice fill the void while I'm doing this heavily visually complicated mechanic before checking chat again, as I'm trying to not... as people are clustering around me. You deserve that. You followed the tank buster. You deserve what you got. And you're not wrong. Okay, if we made a second channel for talking about other games, I'd follow it for sure. If I made a second channel, I would probably let this channel rot in the general purpose. Rot. Like, this channel is just kind of going to be my dumping ground for video ideas, whatever. If I made a second channel, it would probably be another very focused channel. Or I would flip the script and turn this one 100% Fire Emblem focused, and then only do, in a second channel, kind of do my dumping ground stuff. I feel like I'm more likely to make this channel the dumping ground and do a second channel on, like, if I ever were to start, like, something that I'm passionate about and feel like I have a lot of video ideas for. I've had random ideas of maybe doing, like, an old school RuneScape focused channel. And then I might do that in a separate channel. If I ever do old school RuneScape videos, I'll do those in a separate channel, while this one becomes just kind of like all other gaming. But that could also change if I rediscover my passion for Fire Emblem specifically and be like, okay, cool, I want to do a lot more Fire Emblem, then I might make another channel just to kind of dump stuff onto. Love to hear you talk about other games either here on a second channel or deeply Tales games for the way the fandom is like non-existent. That's another rough thing. Is like sometimes you have a fandom that exists and is not great. Sometimes you have a fandom that just doesn't exist. And sometimes you have a fandom that does exist but is so small and far-flung it's hard to get a feel on. Sometimes you have a fandom that does exist and is way too big to actually capture and to actually have a good grasp of. Who started the fight? Yeah, whatever. Come on, fall down the hole. Thank you. Hate having to retarget him every time.
Destroyer wouldn't be an exaggeration for this one. Well, that's just wonderful.
Big into Mega 10, roguelikes, tactical games, dungeon crawlers. Oh, he just did top twice in a row? What? Weird. Didn't know he could do that. Panther running through the floor threatens to explode. Oh wait, no, that's... I've done this fight before. I did far better on the fight first time than I'm doing now. What am I doing? Streamer curse, I suppose. What else? I don't know how people do first playthroughs of games on stream. I can never particularly in the right way doing that. So true. I did a first playthrough of Engage on stream and deeply regretted it the entire time. I very much wish that my first playthrough of Engage was not a streamed playthrough, because it took way too long. I didn't, like, I got into it in some ways, but also was like, I got into it in some ways, but was also really driven to kind of just push through in ways that I don't know if I necessarily would have had I not been streaming it. And also just the restriction on my time as making it a stream game instead of being able to just play it casually by myself is huge. Like, there are some games that I think are fine for a stream game, but people do stuff like play Xenoblade games for the first time on stream, and I'm like, you have officially signed yourself up for never being able to enjoy that game properly, is how it feels with a game like that, of like, either you are going to be streaming day in, day out for weeks, or you are going to be pushing yourself to rush through certain aspects and not take the time to properly engage with the side content and whatnot that you want to. Could never do a game first try with streaming with people watching. I don't think Awakening is bad for Fire Emblem, but it's not my instinct to suggest it anymore either years ago. Oh yeah, a person who was doing Awakening on stream. Yeah, that was also probably another problematic thing. Out was a fun little stream, very productive. Thanks for chatting. Yeah, thanks for stopping in, Waffles. You're probably well gone by this point. Would you fix the Fire Emblem support system? Do supports need fixing if the most incarnation have been fine? I think Fire Emblem supports have been fine for forever. I don't have a problem with Fire Emblem supports. I don't have a problem with GBA Fire Emblem supports. I don't have a problem with Telia supports. I think Radiant Dawn supports are weak. But I get what they were doing when they were trying to change stuff. I think the Awakening, Fates, and whatnot, I think there are definitely levels of supports that you can argue need to be fixed in terms of their sheer number. or in terms of the... Yeah. In terms of their sheer number, I think the supports of like 3 houses, it's a bit much. Because when you are having to stop all your gameplay flow to literally watch 2 hours of cutscenes if you're letting the voice acting play through, that's too much. Straight up, I think that's just way too much. Too many supports. But if you're doing supports like that that are more freeform in order to actually get them, I think it's a lot better in terms of that, because it's a lot harder to just kind of miss out on supports if you're even at all using 2 units together. Whilst also trying to manage then the support bonuses being, hey, this is powerful and important, but then also doesn't necessarily break the game if you have someone who's supported with everyone. I don't know. I think it's a complicated system. I think it's tricky. And I think it's not something that... I think the support system is complicated. I think it's hard to draw absolute lines of like, oh, this needs to be fixed type thing, because I think that it's very functional in pretty much all of its iterations. It just kind of depends on what you prefer the system, what you prefer from the system. And I think it's one of those things where every iteration has its explicit problems, and which of these problems are you more or less okay with having in your game? Are you okay with having the massive flood of story content and kind of like being a block of just, oh yeah, people might drop the game because there are way too many support conversations in a row, or they might just like skip them and not pay attention to them anymore because there are too many of them. You know, are you okay with that happening? Versus, are you more okay with, well, I don't want to interrupt the flow too much, but then people are going to be upset by like a limit of number of support conversations you have. I think the Shadows of Valencia support system is pretty effective because there are a small number of supports that exist in those games. Every one of the supports is limited not only by gaining support points, but also by story progression. So you're not going to be getting B rank, C rank, like B rank, A rank, whatever, all in a row, all at the same time. It's going to be... It's going to take the whole game before you get these. How do these things even look? It's not bad. We got legs. I think I already have those. Actually, I'm just going to grade on those, because could potentially use them on my Red Mage and my Astro. Wind Up Prish. I actually got the Wind Up Prish. I'm not going to get any of the cards either, am I? So yeah, I don't think support system needs to be fixed, but I think the question is, okay, what are the problems you see in the support system that you want fixed? And then go from there. Biggest thing is class balance and reclassing. Not every pair needs supports, definitely. I'd argue to balance mountain use, make them rare, give them 2 or students, nothing else for flyers. Oh, that is an extreme take. All foot needs to make the game very slow. I feel like if I mention the fact my little game very personal skill, getting an extra action for reposition once per turn. Like, so there are multiple ways that you can tackle the mount/flyer problem, if you want to call it that, of Fire Emblem, because my brain is getting a little cooked on this. How do I address this? Okay, so Fire Emblem traditionally is seen as having a problem of mounted units are just better. Mounted units are seen as better because they have more mobility while having similar, if not sometimes actively better, stats compared to footlocked units. There's variety, there's impact, there's whatever, but that's how it is. And the drawstrings you have to pull on are explicit weaknesses of mounted units, vulnerability to effective weaponry, limited stats, limit more harsh terrain penalties, yeah, more limited stats, maybe more limited weapon access, potentially just being on statistically weaker units. Sometimes you can do that. That's one aspect you can pull on. Another aspect you can pull on is the strength, conversely, the strengths of infantry, where do infantry have better stats? Do they have less vulnerabilities? Do they have more unique skills or just better units in infantry classes? This, of course, assuming no reclassing. I think reclassing is the bane of... Hot take. My Fire Emblem hot take is that class balance in Fire Emblem does not matter until you add in reclassing. Because class balance and unit interaction are all the same thing in games without reclassing, but as soon as you have reclassing, class balance supersedes all of that. If Fire Emblem wants to have traditionally pretty solid paladins that are kind of do everything units but don't necessarily excel at anything, if they want to have very strong, very powerful Wyvern Riders, if they want to have very fast, very agile Pegasus Knights, then you can't have that and have a reclassing system without, by default, making a lot of infantry classes, and especially the more restrictive classes like Armor Knights, be very overlooked and undertaken without some very, very powerful bonuses for having those classes. And I know that my take on reclassing is going to be popular within my community because I have a community who also tends to not like reclassing, or when they do, likes reclassing on like repeat runs or challenge runs or whatnot, and not necessarily as a default stated thing. I think my problem with reclassing is that it forces people to talk about balance. Actually, no, that's not my problem with reclassing. What am I talking about? I think the community's problem with reclassing is that it forces people to talk about class balance in ways that are unhelpful and unproductive. I think my problem with reclassing is that it breaks unit cohesion, unit fantasy of like, cool, I want to have units that feel like the unit they are. I want to have Garrick feel like the mercenary that becomes either a ranger or a hero. I want to have, you know, a mage feel like they're a mage and they're getting to be a good mage, but they're still a mage. I want to have an armor knight that feels like an armor knight, that then has uses like an armor knight. I don't want to have units that are all just like, you know, but what if they were on a horse? You know, they're cool and all, but what if they were on a dragon? And just have that kind of be, okay, who's my wyvern slots going to if we're going to, like, Shadow Dragon? Or who has the easiest, like, the best path, or the easiest path or best path into Wyvern, if we're talking about Three Houses or Engage? Who has, you know, these sorts of discussions fundamentally flatten my interest in units and turn it into, well, some classes are just better than others, some classes are just traps. Versus, oh yeah, this unit is interesting because they are a bad unit in a good class. Like, no one's gonna sit here and say Noah and Trek are fantastic units, but they're both decent enough and they're in a very solid class. But also, the Cavalier class has downsides because you only get one promotion item for Cavaliers up until you rescue Percival and all his knights, or get to the secret shop in Chapter 16. So there's an inherent downside to being a Knight Crest class, as well as the upsides of being just a Cavalier and that being a solidly kitted class in the first place. And I think that inherently makes units like Noah and Trek a lot more interesting to discuss, rather than if they were able to reclass freely, or if all of your promotion items were Master Seals. Reclassing divorces characters from gameplay, but I think most Fire Emblem fans prefer them tightly coupled, and unit fantasy is what puts role into role-playing. The awful generic outfits replacing the bespoke outfits in Engage. Oh, they replaced the bespoke outfits in 3 houses. And unless you're in that unit's base class, you do not have their bespoke outfit, and it feels awful. My units feel all ugly and the same and not unique, even if it's like, cool, I kind of want my units to feel cohesion, maybe not that much. Shadow Dragon, you don't have the beautiful custom sprites or custom models that units used to have in GBA and Tellius. It's all just, hey, here's Cavalier, so you have a Cavalier outfit, and that's it. You have... Reclassing has killed a lot of that, and this is also why they've gone for units that are so out there visually, so that way when they shove them into a generic outfit, you can still tell who they are. That's another issue with reclassing there. I've learned that I don't prefer reclass one way or the other. It's more important that I find the reclassing itself interesting mechanically. If you're going to do it, make it interesting for me, so I switch him to make reclassing so incredibly dull. I think that there is merit in the 3 houses class progression system, with the unlocks and the... like, it creates very much a sense of progression on your units, but I do agree that it kind of... once there becomes a meta route through the class progression system, and the meta route kind of just being Wyvern or Gremory, or occasionally Sniper, it kills it for me when it's like, cool, I had a very diverse army going through 3 houses multiple times. I didn't go Wyvern maxing. I did Gremory maxing in my Silver Snow run, but that's just because I thought it was fun. Thought it was funny. But I understand why a lot of people have these issues with reclassing. But I also understand why people like Fates reclassing, now that I did my replay of Conquest and have talked with Elad a lot more about it, because Fates reclassing has a lot of interesting stuff going on for it once you understand the game. But if you don't understand the game on a chapter-by-chapter level, the Fates reclassing just feels like a more restricted version of Awakening's reclassing, which is hunt for skills until you get the skills you want, then set yourself into your final form. And that's just kind of it. And the more steps you have to take to get the skills you want, the longer and more arduous the grind is going to be. Double check that I successfully checked all those off. Awesome. Trials or expert dungeons? How about for something that's a little more just straightforward? Let's do some expert dungeons. Tender Valley. These, I think I've... Tender Valley, Straver Deadwalk, Yubiwada, Underkeep, Miso. And then Clatium, which I could get on an expert roulette, but I don't trust myself to get that. Durability gear is notably low. Let's fix that. Also, let's just extract the materia while I can. Fates and Wicked addition reclass attached to a sport supposed to refer you class. Sports should not give reclass options, but give you skills at A rank. That's another interesting take on that. What else are people saying? Actually, someone agree 3H is something going on with reclassing, at least in theory, but Engage reclass especially is so boring. Yes, Engage reclassing is very boring, but it's also exceedingly restrictive if you're trying to reclass specifically into Mage without DLC. If you don't have the Engage as DLC and you want to make a unit a Mage, tough luck. Where are the DPS? They... taking a while. Would you say the Path of Radiance having skills being basically items is better? I think it's different. I think that there are multiple ways to handle skills. I personally... I'm not saying that the Awakening way of handling skills in terms of having it be leveled by class is bad. I think that the way that Awakening's reclass system works means that you are using reclassing as a fundamentally as a skill hunt and less of a... well, anything else, I guess. You're using it less as, oh, I would like a unit of this class for this situation, and more of a, I need this unit to be in this class in order for me to get the skill that I want. And that's a little bit less true in Fates, since Fates, you keep your level, but is very true in Awakening, where you reset your level every time you use a second seal, but you still keep the internal experience calculator based on your total number of level ups. And so you are far more encouraged to really lock yourself onto that skill grind in Awakening, unless you have DLC maps or are willing to do a horribly awful slog to eventually get the skills that you want. That's how I feel about the Awakening grind. I don't think necessarily that, like, the skill system is better in Path of Radiance when, like, you get skills just as items versus skills being gotten from classes. I think there's benefits to both. I just personally feel like the interaction between the skill grind and the reclassing system makes someone like me very... I feel like I'm forced to interact with the reclassing system if I want to build units, but then I'm reclassing to build units, not to really experience other classes. Maybe is that if that's a better way to put it. I'm taking this opportunity to get myself a drink and not talk as much, because I've been talking non-stop for like however long the stream's been going. It says 2 hours. Let me not miss the side objective by playing one-handed. Side objective, boss mechanic. You don't know. Class is just a stepping stone rather than a home base. And I think, and that's why, in a weird way, I kind of like at least the theory behind Three Houses class progression system, because it makes it kind of explicit that the classes are going to be stepping stones and encourages you to kind of like create a path through it explicitly, instead of being like, well, you could just stick into the classes that the units are at base, but they're gonna be bad if you do that. Not bad, but like it's gonna be, you're gonna run into certain issues if you do that. More so than not, or more so than other games. More sports should have both characters in the sport chain just hate each other. supports should have interesting interactions between characters and show us different aspects of the characters that we don't necessarily see by default. I think having certain characters maybe not even necessarily hate each other, but like have dislike for each other, have genuine like rubbing against each other in uncomfortable ways. Not like that. Having their personalities be abrasive to each other, I think, is an easy catalyst for shaking up the dynamic of a traditional support. I don't think it should be done all the time, but I think when it makes sense, it should definitely be done. Like Shannon in Tellius. Granted, most of what we get with Shannon is in like base conversations and not supports. But Shannon is a perfect example of like a very easy to dislike character. This person is not a straight up good person, as you would normally see. But that makes them more fascinating and more interesting to learn about as a character because they are non-traditional, because they are doing things and saying things that most characters would not do or say. And thus, it creates perfect opportunities for the character to be rude or to be aggressive to someone else, even in a support conversation where otherwise you would think, oh, they're going to want to, be nice to their character because they're supports. What I don't like is when you have a character support with like the majority of the cast and every one of their supports feel very similar. Three Houses suffered from this problem a lot, especially characters like Bernadetta, who there is a lot of potentially interesting stuff in there with their character, but the vast majority of C supports and even into B supports that we get are just, oh, she's scared. Cool. I don't... After the third time we've had this conversation, I don't care anymore. Please figure out something else to do with this character. They feel very one-note and exceptionally annoying. But that's just my take as a Bernadetta hater. Not hater. Hater's a strong word. I did not fall in love with her and instantly feel the need to protect, like so many other people did in the community. And that kind of by default put me at odds with some people. One thing I liked was how developing relationships with Marianne as a character had a big impact on the character's future. Yeah. There are genuine aspects for that can be interesting and can be good. And I think if we're going to talk about support problems, let's talk about the elephant in the room, that if you can have a character have all the supports, having them constantly be sliding backwards and forwards in their character development feels really bad. Like, if we have a character who has a big moment of, like, opening up and gaining self-esteem, or learning who they are, or not being afraid of this thing, or whatever, if we have these character moments, whether they be in support or in the story, and then you just have another support that then throws that character back into how they were at the start of the game, it rips me out of the moment and makes me think, hey, this character doesn't actually have an arc, or the writers just like don't care about the arc so much as they care about having their Blorbo be consistent and like locking them in place, and it just feels very It feels bad. It feels bad. I don't like it. I don't have necessarily a full continuation of that thought. I just don't like it when that happens. Ryan, because I forgot, what did you want me to let you know about when I reach Sun in Sunbreak? Oh, afflicted monsters. That's like near the end of Sunbreak. That's kind of like the post grind. Because that is like the traditional Monster Hunter endless grind. Is like, cool. Afflicted monsters means you are now going to be fighting all the monsters in the game again and again and again to create slight but meaningful improvements to your weapons on a consistent basis. But you're also going to want to be constantly rotating out your weapons because it's like, okay, you can reach this tier of afflicted weapon crafting from this level of enemies, but then you need to really grind up the afflicted research level before you get to the next tier of monsters that drop the next like section and level of materials. And it'll keep going as long as you want to play it up until like really, really late, and I'm like halfway through the progression of it. There, like I said, there's always more afflicted monsters to hunt, and it's fantastic. If you like playing Sunbreak and like just an excuse to play more Sunbreak. Speaking of which, I need an excuse to play more Sunbreak. Please play Sunbreak with me at some point in time. How I saw the direct and pleasant surprise some decent amount of variety FW has. Yeah, I keep wanting to call it Fodlan Winds because that's the name of like the main song and because the name of the main like part 1 theme in Three Houses, but no, it's Fortune's Weave, not Fodlan Winds is what it's called. Yeah, I was genuinely surprised and pleasantly surprised too, hence why I'm like, cool. I'm actually somewhat interested in the game now, whereas before I was like, hey, it's Fire Emblem, so I probably will play it when I get a Switch 2. But I didn't necessarily have a particularly strong drive to play it before this direct. And now I'm like, okay, maybe I need to make getting a Switch 2 a little bit higher of a priority so I can more fully, you know, so I can play this game and more fully engage with it. I am dying! Did that wrong. Did that very wrong. Oh no, we don't have a healer up anymore. This is bad. Please tell me someone else has a Phoenix down. Because I don't. And I don't want to... I have... Okay, good. Someone did have a Phoenix down. We're fine. Thank goodness. Because... Yeah, this boss hurts. This boss is not the best to fight without a healer. Run. Sprint is on cooldown. Sprint is on cooldown. Of course, he just dashes away from me as soon as I hit the ground attack. Sorry, at this point I need to focus. I have a very slim line of ground tiles that I'm able to walk on versus before I fall off a cliff, and I really would like to not fall off a cliff. Hey, anytime anyone wants to rip that LB2, please, please do. No? No DPS wants to LB2. Well, if you do it at this point, it's a DPS loss, because you're... Fine, I'll use it. There. Cleared it. Okay, how does a character annoy you in fiction? Only people that make me angry are real people. Like, I'm not, like, it doesn't, like, sit on me and make me angry. It's not like I don't, like, dwell on them and be like, ugh, so frustrating, you know, something like that. That's not how I'm at with, like, characters in fiction. But there are definitely times in fiction where I'm like, okay, there are very frustrating, characters to me, but it's when they reflect the aspects that I don't like about people in real life. The most frustrating characters to me are people like the stepmother in Cinderella, or like where they are so deliberately cruel purely for the sake of being cruel, not even because they're getting anything out of it, just because they want to enforce that cruelty upon someone else, just because they can't stand not being the center of attention, either themselves or the ones that they've chosen. It's that sort of thing that's like, I really despise this type of personality trait, and whether I see it in a person in real life or in a person in a character, it's like, I have a hard time with that. I am far less offended by characters in fiction being racist or bigoted or something like that, because while that may make them a very easily hateable character in fiction, it does mean that they are still fictional, and I'm able to separate out the fiction of, like, oh yeah, they're a bad person, but I can still be interested in the character, versus I think that the traits they have are, like, I don't know how to put it. Like, for instance, Shannon is an asshole. Everyone can agree. He's the most punchable face in Tellius. But we all kind of love him for that, not because we think that he is a good person, or that we would want to, like, be friends with him specifically, or anything like that, or that we condone any of his prejudices, but that we find it interesting that we are allowed to explore a character like that a character like that is allowed to exist in Fire Emblem as a playable character. And I think people find that interesting more so than... It's always Underkeep. I guess I had to do the Underkeep at some point in time. People find that interesting more so than just a character who just proceeds to do one thing constantly all the time. And it's like, you're not progressing anything with this, you're not doing anything interesting with it. You are just causing misery, or you're just causing annoyance, or you're just this or that or whatever, and it just kind of becomes bleh. So, like, I don't, like, hate Bernadetta, for instance, but I don't find her that interesting. I find her very... She's taken what could be a very intense topic and blorbified it into, I'm over the top scared of everything, and it's like, cool, why are you even here? I don't feel like the character you have necessarily feels like it has a place in the fiction that in my head the game is going to. And I could be wrong, and I know that people have different opinions on that, and that's totally fine. But that's an example of a character annoying me or bothering me, but not that I necessarily hate them, or that sort of thing. If that makes sense. These are non-linear storytelling. We have a choice of the order that you view the content. Yeah, when it talks about, I was talking about, like, characters like undoing themselves through supports and whatnot. Yeah, totally. I understand that. That is definitely just a thing that you have to deal with when you have the opportunity for things to happen non-linearly. It's going to happen non-linearly, and thus it's going to happen in a way that something's going to break or something's going to backslide. And something that's been done before in Fire Emblem as well is to restrict you from accessing certain supports after a certain period of time. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but if you want to try to have some semblance of... I don't have buff window for this. That's disappointing. Gonna have to wait until after it does its whole pipe thing. Do not press my buttons yet. Do not press my buttons yet. So that's a thing, I guess. People don't like it when they do that, but there are reasons why they do that, and I see both sides of like, yeah, it's not an ideal solution, but it is kind of the best you can get. That sort of thing. Okay, possibly one that's possibly unsolvable or cursed. Yeah. I just started Master Rank 2. Oh yeah. I hope you're enjoying Master Rank, by the way. Welcome to Monsters Are Gonna Slap. They're gonna slap hard. But you have the skills, ideally, at this point, to figure it out and deal with it. I love Monster Hunter. Master Rank is both delightful and cursed at the same time for some of the things that it asks you to do. Dark Souls has it where you can miss the NPC story, which means it continues regardless. Yeah. Totally knew where he was. Totally didn't just miss that entirely. Yeah, it's like, ultimately, you have to make a choice as a designer. Do you allow for things... Do you allow for content to break continuity in order to give precedence to the player in not missing it? Or do you enforce continuity at the cost of this? Many of your players are likely to actively miss out and potentially stop playing the game because they missed out on content that they otherwise would have and now need to do a full replay through in order to get. You have to make a choice as a designer, and there are pros and cons to both avenues. And I think not a lot of people talk about... the way I want to put it is, far too many people seem to talk about these things as explicitly good or explicitly bad, or universally better. One is universally better than the other. One is like, well, we fixed the problem by doing it this way, and it's like, okay, cool. I don't see it that way. I see it, like many things, as contextual, of like, what is the problem that you want to solve? What is the problem with supports that you want to fix? Why would there need to be a fix in the first place? Is the problem player units are getting too powerful from their support bonuses? Solution: limit the number of supports a player can have, or limit the spaces at which supports activate for units. Is the problem you're trying to solve, supports are too narrow and limiting and require your units to be right next to each other all the time in order to have a bonus? In which case the solution is, well, spread out how far a unit is allowed to give or receive a support bonus. Make it so that it's something that they can take advantage of at a distance, but keep in mind that in doing so, you open up the possibility for units to be getting too many support bonuses. So do you limit how many units they can be supported with in general? Do you just limit how many supports a unit can have acting on them at a time? If you do that, how do you allow the player to choose which supports are active on a unit in a way that's not going to massively slow them down or cause UI debt for a designer to have to solve in the future? You know, these are all decisions that are made that come with their trade-offs. And if there's one goal that I have with my channel and the people watching it, it's to encourage people to talk about things in that form of by context, decisions, and trade-offs, instead of trying to even talk about things as like, oh, it's subjective or objective type thing. It's like, no. There is a lot of subjectivity and objectivity in a lot of things, but it's not that things are bad or good. It's not that things are inherently flawed or not, necessarily. It's that decisions are made for a reason. Decisions are made in order to solve certain problems. Some of those decisions are more effective at solving problems than others, and some of those decisions end up creating certain problems that otherwise would not have existed. Like, reclassing exists to solve the issue of, well, a lot of players feel like they don't get a chance to play with the classes they want to. A lot of players want to have more control over the units in their army than they ordinarily do. A lot of players kind of feel pigeonholed, but it's like, why do I only have one archer? I might want to have 4 archers, you know. Reclassing allows that to happen. Reclassing also opens the floodgates for, as we talked about, unit balance becomes far more important to a lot more players. The routing of when you reclass and why you reclass suddenly becomes far more important. By opening that box that seems to be such just a simple idea, you've now created so many more issues that you now have to try and solve.
That was hardly a challenge.
Or
I see. You will show me more. I bid you press on.
yeah. But yeah, so that's more of my goal with the channel, of the types of things that I want to say and do. And the ways that I want to encourage people to talk. Like, for instance, with the script that I have for the Fire Emblem 6 video on really tackling all the problems people have with the game, there are many times when I say, okay, this is just an objective fact about the game. It doesn't have to be... It's not an objective problem. It's just a statement of fact. And the way you word it determines if it's a problem or not. Like, for instance, Fire Emblem 6 has very low hit rates. That is a statement of fact. Fire Emblem 6 hit rates are too low turns that statement of fact into a statement of more subjective value. Too low for what? How low is too low? What would increasing the hit rate meaningfully do to change or improve your experience with the game? Why is it too low? You know, and I spent more time expressing that now than I think I did in the script itself, but that is the general point that I try to make in the video of, like, while a lot of these statements that people are like, oh, these are flaws with the game, it's like, no, these are facts about the game, but they're not necessarily flaws, because you have people like me who will enjoy them. You have people like me who say, yeah, low hit rates. I don't necessarily love low hit rates, but the low hit rates encourage and create a type of unit action economy management and balancing of units, balancing of otherwise relatively weaker player and stronger enemy units that otherwise couldn't exist while still feeling fair.
This machine
Yeah.
has long guard.
Clear design pillars and goals. Exactly. You need to know what you are creating and why you are creating it, whilst also understanding what people will think of the thing you create.
Handle this.
Not necessarily to change what you create to suit the needs of the people, but you do need to understand what people think about, so that way you can prepare yourself for their questions, for their problems, and be able to then make a more
Let us introduce
just started laughing at this viper just getting wrecked. You need to understand what problems people will have so they don't catch you unawares. Not necessarily so you can fix them. Because some of the problems you may encounter might not be fixable while still having your design at the forefront. Heck, some people's problems might just be your intended design. And some people might say, well, that is just a flawed design. And it's like, not necessarily. It is a choice that was made. It's a choice you might not agree with. But it's not just some random flaw that stumbled into the game by happenstance and no one thought about it until it shipped. You know, that's... And that feels like the way that a lot of people talk about stuff like the things they don't like about FE6, is that it just has these things that are like, oh, it's such a blatant issue. No, like, they obviously never play-tested this game, the fact that you're missing all the time. And it's just like, no? No? Explicitly not. They decided they wanted to make a game where you miss a lot. That's fine. And it's okay if you don't like that. That's also fine. You don't have to like everything that's deliberate in a game. But call it what it is. That it is a decision that you don't like, and not it is just a flaw that's just bad. That's my soapbox, and that's why I'm... And I think that's why I care about Fire Emblem 6 specifically so much, is because it's such an easy punching bag for so many people that it needs... It doesn't need anything. It's a game that was made in the distant years of, like, almost 25 years ago. It doesn't need anything. But it deserves a bit of respect, and it deserves a bit of attention. And if I'm the person that has to give it that level of respect, then so be it. Okay, Dungeon's done. What are people talking about? Like, so many games of design that people think are bad requires understanding the intended experience. Separating out the intention, executing the intention. That project trying to fix FE6. You better put a /S behind that, because explicitly no. It may have started as that at some point in time, but explicitly no. Project Ember is an attempt to turn FE6 into a different game. Not necessarily to try and fix Fire Emblem 6. I think that the people who made Project Ember don't understand Fire Emblem 6. and what works with it. I think that the people who made Project Ember made a lot of choices that I very strongly disagree with in terms of design principles in general. But again, it is a game that was designed for a specific purpose. I just happen to be very much not the target audience for Project Ember. A lot of people like what Project Ember does, a lot of people do not like what Project Ember does, and I am in the category of the latter. But I'm not going to say that they are objectively wrong. Just that there are a lot of things that they have introduced that have a lot of carryover that I think make the game much less fun for myself. Main dev behind PE said he was primarily inspired by DSFE, which is his own can of worms. Yeah, exactly. I used to not like Binding Blade, and then I came around to it. I used to not like Shadow Dragon, and then I came around to it. I used to not like a lot of things, and then I came around to them. I used to like a number of things that now I just don't care for as much. I used to like Three Houses a lot. Now I don't particularly care for it. Don't think it's a bad game by any means. It's just not my personal cup of tea. And I think it's hilarious when people come into my comment section and try to tell me that I have serious Three Houses bias. And I'm like, no. I have Sacred Stones, Path of Radiance, and Gaiden bias. That's the bias I have. I have old jank bias. I have FE1 bias. You know? I'm the person who's going to tell people to play FE1 and FE3. Yeah, it's funny to me at this point. The types of opinions people will think that I have and assume that I have based on some of the things I say without actually listening to the things that I say. That's temporality. The time and place you are in your life as a player and a place in the life the devs are. Yes, exactly. Miso Terminal. Let's go. Like 4 more dungeons left. And then a bunch of trials. It's like so many things need to be taken with the context of when they were made, when they were experienced, when they were...
Ah, you've come.
Fill in the blank.
Begin by wearing you down.
A lot of people's favorite games, a lot of games that are considered groundbreaking and like the best games ever, are games that in a vacuum aren't necessarily any better than the games that came after that were inspired by them. But we often give deference to those games that came before because they did it first, or because they did it well early. But that also hides certain aspects of design that are more timeless than people give them credit for, or certain aspects of design that are just more inherently enjoyable than modern design, but that are hard to tease out from... But that are hard to tease out from the perspective of, oh, it's just nostalgia blinding you. Like, for instance, I always beat up on Ocarina of Time. Let's beat up on Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was a massive game. Heck, I always beat up on Final Fantasy VII. Let's beat up on Chrono Trigger. Nah. Final Fantasy VII was a massive, massive game. It was many people's very first introduction to JRPGs. It was many people's first introduction to the PlayStation and the 3D pre-rendered cutscenes the PlayStation could give. It was many people's first introduction to a truly complicated story in a video game. Does it mean it was better than than the games that came before or after? No. But it was very impactful for a lot of people, and that's why so many people love it. Even though people like me who come back and play it after the fact are like, you know, I get it, but I also don't get it. Like, I kind of understand it's a solid game. It's not a bad game. But I had my reaction after finishing the game was like, why is this one the one that people like so much? And the answer is a lot of external factors that are not necessarily tied to the game at itself. Let's say temporality. You need back up you some time, get tripped by how easy early game is. Fire Emblem 3 is odd because what people consider... I'm not going to go there just yet. I want to finish the chat first, but that's unlocked a conversation in my mind of Fire Emblem difficulty and difficulty discussion in general. But I want to just clear up the chat first before I get sidetracked, because I know that's going to be a long one. Did just download the initial current with FFXIV for the first time. Cool stuff. I did not enjoy Chrono Trigger while acknowledging its good pacing and charm. Yeah, totally fine. Totally acceptable. Like, I had mixed feelings about Chrono Trigger. I think it is a good game. I think it is a very well-made game. I understand a lot of what people see in it, and I see various elements of it as well, too. But I also played it in a weird manner. I played, like, 80 to 90% of it, and then stopped, and then came back, like, a couple years later and finished it. Which is not the ideal way to experience that game. But what happened to me is that I played up until you were given the freedom to, like, do everyone's final quest lines and experience that, and, like, get people's best items and experience their capstones or quest lines and all that stuff. And I messed up because I didn't understand how the time-locked treasure chests worked. And then I looked it up online. Be like, hey, what's with these treasure chests? Why would I not open them? And then come to find out, oh, had I interacted with them, not opened them, and then went into the future and opened them, that's how you get, like, a lot of the best items in the game. And I'm like, cool. I feel locked out of these because of a knowledge gap on my part that the game was not clear with existing at all. I felt very kind of, like, burned by the game that way and stopped playing. Looking back, you know, I ended up coming back and finishing it and being like, you know what, I still had a good time, still a good game regardless of that. But it's one of those things where it's like, that's all it takes sometimes for someone to suddenly have what you think is, oh, it's a clever system and whatever, and adds to the game with the time element. And sometimes it's that small of a thing is all it takes for someone to be like, I otherwise would have loved this game, and then I just didn't even bother finishing it. To be fair, I was also like 17 at the time. But yeah, little bit of honest personal perspective of my life regarding that in terms of Chrono Trigger. FF9 gripped me the whole way through. Final Fantasy IX, I hit a weird part where it's like, okay, I got the boat, and then I started doing a lot of Chocobo Hot and Cold, and then I stopped playing the game for a bit, and now I don't remember what I'm supposed to do in it, and so I haven't actually booted it up and continued my playthrough in a couple years. Yeah, I started playing it like 2021, 2022. And yeah, it's been so long, I just don't remember what I'm supposed to be doing now. And no one in the game is reminding me what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just like, okay, I have a boat, so I'm probably supposed to sail somewhere. I don't remember where I'm supposed to sail. And Final Fantasy IX is also one of the few games that, for me, the slowness of the loads actively is preventing me from enjoying it. Like, I historically have not been a player for whom slowness of game is a real detriment or like a game killer. But the fact that Final Fantasy IX, in the Switch port, they have still retained the hard-coded delays in load times. That it will take sometimes 10 to 20 seconds to load into a random encounter. Like, for some reason, that alone killed a lot of my desire to play the game. Because, like, okay, there's a lot of fun, cool things you can do with the armor skill system in Final Fantasy IX. There's so many cool things. I want to grind out. I want to get all the Blue Mage abilities. I want to do all these fun things that the game has on offer. Yet, wow, our DPS are really struggling with the headsman here. It's like, I want to do all these things that the game has on offer, but I don't really enjoy the process of doing it because the fights take so long to actually load into. And that might be, you know, dismissive on my part, or blind on it, or what have you. But that's kind of just, at the end of the day, that's just a fact of, this is what created my issue in... This is what created enough of a barrier between me and enjoying playing Final Fantasy IX that I stopped actively playing it. Like, I was willing to take a break from it, stop actively playing it, and then ran into an issue where it's like, okay, what am I doing now? And I fully understand that that is not... I fully admit that that is not necessarily, like, the game's problem. That's my problem with the game, which is a distinct difference, as I've said. But in understanding games that I stopped playing, even though I otherwise really enjoy them, that does become something where it's like, through that, I understand a lot more of why people dislike other games that I might enjoy. Everything's a learning experience. Everything can be a learning experience if you choose to learn. Anyway, now that rant's over, let's actually look at the chat now and see what people are saying about my massive rant. Couldn't get into Chrono Trigger combat, felt so bare bones. E33 is a game people dog on you for hating with the dodge parry system, which invalidates... Invalidates strat... That is a strong way of phrasing something that I'm not entirely sure of what you're trying to imply. Like, I think I understand what you mean in terms of it bypasses the traditional balance of power that exists in a traditional turn-based JRPG style game of buffing defenses, healing in response to moves, that type of thing, and instead turns the game into a, well, if you can parry well enough, then you never have to get hit at all. I can understand why you have a problem with that in the game, because yeah, that is just a choice the game made. And if you don't like parry systems, I mean, what are people going to say? Put the difficulty down to the easiest difficulty, so that way you could just absorb all the hits and like kind of not even care. It's like, I don't think that's inherently more enjoyable or fun either. I found the parry system fine. It was engaging and enjoyable, but at the same time it was... I had issues with some of the way that the game was balanced around it, where it's like, okay, I either parry everything or I instantly die, and a lot of these parry windows are very unclear where they are with the bosses. And then, especially once you get Painted Power, it becomes, oh, well, I can break the damage cap, so I'm just going to set up my L to do one big Stendhal and kill every enemy, kind of no matter what. And that becomes, like, you can just alpha strike your way through the game. Like, I killed the final boss without him getting a single attack in. And that didn't feel like it should have been the case. And I feel a bit robbed by myself. And I think it's easy to blame the game for that. I think it's easy to blame the game as being something where it's like, oh, it's the game's fault that because I did the amount of side content that I did, the final boss was a pushover easy. I think it's easy to blame the game for that, when in reality it's like, well, the game made a choice in allowing you to do side content that would overlevel you, because post-game content, and much of that side content itself, is so significantly harder than the final boss. Like, this is also exactly what Final Fantasy VII did, is that if you wanted to grind up to unlock everyone's limit breaks, or to fight Emerald and Ruby Weapon, you are probably going to be so powerful that Safer Sephiroth is not going to be a real legitimate challenge for you. And that's what happened to me as well. And you know what? I accepted that. It's like, you know, that's fine. I still got to see the cool, like, 7-minute long cutscene move where he shoots the solar system. And then that's kind of it. And then the boss falls over as I dual cast Knights of the Round 5 times. And it's like, cool, I won the game now. Congratulations. I was very aware I was using an overpowered strategy that was deliberately designed to be broken, and congratulations, the broken strategy was broken. It's not the game's fault, unless you want to blame the game for having a broken strategy in the first place, but then they instituted super bosses where you need to use the broken strategy to win, so it's like trade-offs. I think I didn't realize while playing Clair Obscur that what I was doing was such a broken strategy, because it seemed like this was just like intended directly by the game to be the way you do things, or at least one of many possible strategies. Like, turns out every character has strategies that do variants of that. And so it's like, I don't know. This is why it's like, okay, the final step, the final moments of that game ended up being lesser for me than they could have been because of the route that I took, but I can't blame the game entirely for that. But all this aside, coming back to what you were saying, it's like, I understand if you think that having every single attack in the game be parry blockable means that it feels like you kind of feel robbed of the traditional level of strategy that you were expecting from a turn-based tactical game. Not tactical, but like a turn-based RPG. I get it. It does change the game and provide a very different sort of experience than the traditional JRPG experience. I wouldn't necessarily say that it robs it of all strategy, but that's also just my different choice of words for that. Played FFXIV on a PC and the loading was quick. Yeah, I was playing it on Switch, and it seems like they just hard-coded the slow loads into it, and I dislike it for that. Dodge period of defensive healing abilities like in Dark Souls Monotony 33. Hello, bears. Hope you are having a good day. And yeah, that's I think it's totally fine if the game is not your flavor because it revolves around mechanics that you don't find to your taste or that you don't like the way that they were implemented. I think it's fine to not like a game for that. I think Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a weird case of, because the game is so moving and impactful for people in other ways, it becomes very much a, if you say you hate the game, people think you hate everything about the game regardless, and thus say you have no taste or no artistic vision. Whereas I think Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has very intricate themes and very well made and well done story threads that interweave through those themes. I think it has a very well made combat system. At its core, I think that it does lack a bit in certain interstitial elements that more mechanics-focused gamers might want to enjoy, particularly traditional RPG fans. And so I think that for traditional RPG fans, it's going to be a little bit weaker of a game than for people who are not necessarily your typical JRPG fan. I still think it's a very solid game overall, but I understand much more the criticism people have for it and feel that that criticism is definitely legitimate and is not blind. Or doesn't have to be blind. I think that there is blind criticism that is not justified, that has been levied at the game. But I think that there is a lot of justifiable criticism that can be levied at the game that doesn't necessarily mean that you hate everything the game stands for. You don't hate the game for not being what you like, you hate people saying it fixes the JRPG genre. Yeah, people admit they don't like JRPGs. And that's totally fine. I think as a fan of so many genres that people call dead, as a fan of genres that have typically are seen to have been at their peak or in their heyday, in the 90s or early 2000s. I'm talking real-time strategy games, I'm talking city builders, I'm talking JRPGs, I'm talking tactics games. As someone who plays a lot of these traditionally seen as dead genres, it's hard to not take some offense at people who, one, say the genre is dead, and then two, try to say that, oh, this thing fixes this genre, where it's like, no, what this does is make this genre more appealing to a different demographic of player. It doesn't necessarily fix it because it wasn't broken to begin with. You know, it's coming back to my whole thing about FE6. It's like, you don't fix FE6 by making all these small changes. You don't fix Armor Knights by, you know, giving them more move, per se, or doing these other things. What you do is you make them different. You make them more appealing to different people, or better in different situations, but you don't fix them because they're not necessarily broken inherently. It's just preference. And
You're a sight for sore eyes.
And this is another thing that comes back to what I wish people would do. You know, what my wish for my channel is that I wish people would admit that when they say things, what they mean is that it is their preference, not that it is an objective fact. Even if they are talking about an actual fact of the game, that their opinion is a preference when it comes to that. I think the combat of Clair Obscur is fun but flawed. I do not think it fixes the JRPG genre, because I don't think the JRPG genre and traditional turn-based combat was broken or in need of fixing. I think it is a different flavor that makes it more appealing to different people, but it is not a universal improvement upon the genre. It is a different spin on it. Same thing happened with Alfie and Jazz. People act like you breathe life into something lifeless is going to interact with the genre. I'm less familiar with that when it comes to certain artists and certain music, but I agree that it is very frustrating to see people, and I don't know, it's unfortunately just a human condition thing. People see something being successful in something that is traditionally not very successful, and thus the way that they define it is, oh, they fixed the thing. And it's like, well, not necessarily. I don't know why we have such a fixation on this idea of we are fixing problems. That the things people don't like are inherent problems that we can fix if we just happen to be smarter than the people that made the thing in the first place. And it's just like, I'm not saying that objective problems do not exist. But I think when you call everything a problem that you're fixing, you start to lose sight of what it actually means to fix something, and you risk deeply offending people who like the thing that is being killed off or removed. And that you are silencing voices that feel like they are not being heard at all in the first place, just because of your own ignorance to the pre-existing space. Yeah, progress is not linear, it branches out. Yeah, exactly. Like, the vast majority of people, there's someone in my Discord, if they are watching this, they will know who they are. The vast majority of people would see Diablo 2 as a vast improvement on Diablo 1. And what definitely transformed the game into something that is far more appealing to far more people, I cannot in good conscience call it a universal improvement, because it is not an improvement, it is a difference. It is a change from Diablo 1. And while there are not a lot of people who prefer Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, they do exist. And we're not insane for thinking the same way. It's called we're more fans of roguelikes than we are of action RPGs. And having a roguelike that tastes like an action RPG is more important to us than having an action RPG in itself. And like that's the way I would put it. It's like Diablo 2 didn't fix Diablo 1 necessarily. It made a different game. D1 Angband, non-direct friction stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's like you took what was fully turn-based or time turn-based, top-down, single-player, really restrictive graphics. You took all these things and transformed them, iterated upon them, but iteration is not replacement. This also then gets into a weird philosophical debate of, well, then what is improvement? Can something ever be definitively called an improvement? And I think if you take a super contextualist view, the answer is improvement is all relative. Improvement depends on what you are. Improvement depends on your goal. Because I don't. While it doesn't feel true, the idea that there is no such thing as universally agreed upon improvement, while that doesn't feel true, it feels like improvement should be a thing that just can exist and can be experienced regardless of context. I would say the vast majority of improvement is dependent upon context. And to try to hide that fact is belying some very critical points about the nature of progress itself. Dragon Quest refines the systems, Final Fantasy innovates them, even though innovation is always like, yeah, exactly. Every single Final Fantasy is fundamentally different than what came before. This has been true from the very beginning with Final Fantasy I and Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy II could have just done, here's more of the same. Here's some extra spells, some extra levels, maybe some new classes. You know, wizardry style. Nothing wrong with wizardry. Nothing wrong with having one more dungeon that's even bigger with even more higher level stuff and even better loot. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But in making the decision to... In Final Fantasy, making the decision to say, hey, we're going to try to fully innovate on these things. Instead, they took a risk. They took a risk that they made something that people liked and that they risked more people not liking the next thing. And that was a genuine risk. And a lot of people didn't like Final Fantasy II. A lot of its systems were not the most carefully made. They had some fundamental issues in terms of understandability, in terms of flow, in terms of seeming intentionality. Like, there are a significant number of issues that do exist with Final Fantasy II, and then they totally changed course and did a totally different thing for Final Fantasy III. And then that, you know, laid the groundwork for every single time a new numbered Final Fantasy game comes out, it's going to be very different. And so, while a lot of people then have their pet favorites and we're like, hey, I wish we had more games like this one using this system. That's another risk that you take when you are constantly innovating and never making the same thing twice, is that a lot of people aren't gonna like what came before or after. Social perception of a game shapes these conversations a lot. Narratives around it, secondhand accounts. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Heck, the fact that a lot of things, I am willing to give a lot of slack for games and systems purely on the fact of their age and whether they came first. Like, I am willing to give Fire Emblem a lot of credit. The old Fire Emblems especially, a lot of credit, a lot of forgiveness for being so innovative and pushing the boundaries of what was possible on the Famicom. On doing a lot of these things that it's like, really, you can do that? I'm a lot more forgiving for games like Fire Emblem 4, for a lot of the jank in its systems, because it was trying something else entirely new. The lover system, the bonds mechanics, the gold mechanic, all these different types of things are very much things that my brain just went blank. Final Fantasy IV. A lot of FF4 systems are very much Fire Emblem 4. Genealogy of the Holy War. A lot of its systems are very innovative, very brand new, very, like, not really done before. And there are a lot of flaws with the systems that they came up with. A lot of the lever system makes Generation 1 incredibly slow, boring, and tedious, whilst also being stressful at the same time that you're going to mess everything up, whilst making Generation 2, whilst trying to build up Generation 2 to be better, to be stronger, to be more effective, to like, if you want to play with a lot of the coolest concepts that exist in Generation 2, a lot of the coolest unit designs you can make, you need to really hamstring your progression speed and, for many people, enjoyment of Generation 1 to force certain units together and to force certain items on certain units to set all of that up. I laugh because I never ended up finishing my Fire Emblem 4 Iron Man, but I was breathing a sigh of relief as soon as Gen 1 was over, because we were like, yeah, now I can finally just play Fire Emblem without having to worry about the massive mental load of spreadsheet of oh, here's all the supports I need to get, all the conversations I need to listen to, here's all the money that I need to manage for all of these units to make sure that they can get the items that they need to pass down to these other units and everything. I keep saying FF and Final Fantasy. Fire Emblem 4, Genealogy is such a weird game, weird outlier game, because of all these systems that end up feeling like you're playing more of a checklist than an actual Fire Emblem. But that's also okay, because it was innovating on a lot of these things, and it wasn't getting them right first. Because how do you get something right first try like that, when no one else has done anything quite like it before? It's a very hard question to answer, very difficult. I am hitting my wall here. I've been streaming for 3 hours now. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening. I've had 4 concurrent viewers on this stream than on any other stream I've ever done. Like, maybe there were some early engaged streams that were slightly better, but I've been staying around 20 concurrent viewers for the past, like, 2 hours. And I don't know how or why or if those numbers are accurate, but it's been kind of impressive just to see that much. To see that many viewers when this was an impromptu stream that I just turned on, you know, within 5 minutes of getting the idea. Playing a game I don't normally play on the channel, and talking about something that's just kind of adjacent to current news of Fire Emblem, but just also just being like a chat session. Literal spreadsheet games like management games or spreadsheet. People love that. You gotta rest, take your rest. Oh yeah, no. My throat is going to... I'm gonna have no voice tomorrow, and that's perfectly okay. But I am gonna need to stop for the night, because I've been going for several hours now. And I'm tired. But thank you all so much for tuning in. The lurkers, the chatters, the whatever else you've been doing. It's been great. It's been a fun time. I hope to be able to do it again some other time. Heck, maybe I'll make this a recurring thing if I can just chat about game design ideas and broad strokes concepts. If I can come up with stuff to talk about, and if people are willing to come into chat and have questions and have things to talk about, then yeah, totally. I'm more than happy doing this on a slightly more regular clip. I don't know when that next potential stream is going to happen, but yeah. Thanks for your thanks. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful night or day or whatever time it is in whatever part of the world you live in. Game design streams are fun. Yeah, exactly. Talking game design in general is fun. It feels like one of the... and this is the thing of, like... it's not Fire Emblem that I'm passionate about, strictly speaking. It's game design that I'm passionate about. Like, the fine details and nitty-gritty and questions and context-sensitive answers of game design that I find fascinating. And Fire Emblem just so happens to be a game series that has a lot of those questions and a lot of people willing to give answers on them. And a lot of those answers are very different from each other. And I think that's why I ended up falling into the Fire Emblem niche, even though my true passion is not Fire Emblem, it's game design. But anyway, thank you again so much for tuning in. I'm going to turn off the stream and chill. But y'all have a good night, and I will see y'all when I see y'all. Upcoming video some point in the future. I can't even give a date on anything. I don't know when the next stream will be, if I will stream in the future. I hope to, if I can come up with a way to make it as fun as this, because this was really fun and a really good way of getting through a lot of this relic grind. I'm almost done. Just got the trials left and like 2 dungeons. But have a good night, everyone. I'm just going to sit here and then end the stream.